Hey guys, tonight we're not sailing with pirates. No ocean spray. No suspicious barrels rolling across a creaky deck. No salty sailors arguing about whose turn it is to swab something unpleasant. Instead, we're stepping into a world even harsher than the open sea. A world where the enemy isn't a fleet of rival ships, but winter itself. The kind of winter that doesn't just chill your bones, it negotiates with them. Minus 50 degrees cold. Deadly, heavy, relentless cold that doesn't care who you are, what you planned, or whether you remembered to bring gloves. Tonight, we're wandering into the Russian north, to the land of snowdrifts taller than your hopes, winds sharp enough to slice your thoughts in half, and the miraculous wooden cabins, the Izbas, that somehow kept real families alive through conditions that feel scientifically illegal. But before we step into that icy silence, go ahead and like the video and subscribe, but only if this kind of quiet, weird, slightly dramatic historical bedtime storytelling actually helps you relax. If not, no worries. Even Siberian villagers didn't get along with everybody, especially not neighbors who borrowed firewood and never returned it. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. It's always 2 a.m. somewhere. And if you're here, you're probably trying to fall asleep to the cozy idea that at least you don't have to survive 6 months of darkness in a frozen wooden box heated by one giant stone stove. Now, dim those lights. Turn on the fan for that soft, peaceful white noise. Get comfortable and maybe tuck your feet under a blanket, not because of rats, but because an imaginary Russian snow spirit might try to tickle your toes. Unlikely, but honestly, in this kind of cold, anything's possible. Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever wondered what life felt like before central heating, before electric blankets, before thermostats that politely ask what temperature you prefer? What it was like to wake up in a world where stepping outside for 5 minutes meant your eyelashes froze together? What it felt like to build a home not from luxury or artistic inspiration but from pure survival instincts? To gather logs, stack them tight, seal every crack with moss, and pray the walls were strong enough to keep out the kind of cold that turned boiling water into snow before it hit the ground? And how did whole families, generations of them, live inside a single warm room? A room that held meals, sleep, stories, arguments, births, and winter itself, while everything outside lay buried under silence and snow. Tonight, we're going to drift into that world. Not to fear it, not to judge it, but to move through it gently the way the wind moves through pine forests when the storm finally pauses to catch its breath. So take a slow breath in, let the warmth of your blankets sink in, and imagine a tiny cabin glowing in the middle of an endless white wilderness. A cabin that defied the cold simply by existing. This is mildly interesting history for sleep, and these are the stories of the wooden walls that stood their ground against one of the deadliest winters on Earth. Settle in. Close your eyes if you haven't already, and let the story begin. Chapter 1. The house that stared down winter. And now, as your breath softens and the world around you grows quiet, let's drift into one of the coldest places a human being ever tried to call home. A place where winter wasn't a season, it was an opponent. A 6-month siege laid by a sky that never smiled, and a wind that seemed personally offended by the concept of warm flesh. Picture this. A lone Russian log cabin, an Izba, sitting in the middle of a snow-buried landscape that looks more like another planet than Earth. The sky above it is an iron-gray bruise, swollen with more storms that no one asked for. Snowdrifts rise higher than a man can reach, towering like frozen waves that never break. The wind doesn't howl here. It whispers the kind of whisper that freezes the hair inside your nose and makes you question every life choice that led you to this moment. The cabin itself is nearly swallowed by winter. Its roof is weighed down with so much snow it looks like it's wearing a thick fur hat. The logs are dark, ancient, and pressed together so tightly they seem to be clinging to each other for warmth. A wooden fortress built with the quiet, stubborn determination that says, "We will survive this." Somehow. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of smoke, pine resin, and human endurance. A single room, that's all an Izba really is. Just one box of survival standing against a world that drops to 40, 50, sometimes 60 degrees below zero. The kind of cold that steals sound, steals breath, steals time. For the families who lived here, winter was not simply endured, it was negotiated with. Day after day, night after night, as wind slammed against the walls like an angry god demanding tribute. But the Izba had tricks of its own. Every log was cut by hand. Every joint fitted so precisely that the walls were almost airtight, thick enough to turn back the kind of cold that could freeze boiling water before it hit the ground. At the center of the room sits the heart of this little fortress, a massive stone stove, the pech. Not a fireplace, a giant, glowing, life-giving beast of heat. It cooked the food, dried the clothes, warmed the children, and many nights, entire families slept on it, curled together like hibernating bears, because outside, winter was waiting, always waiting. Snow piled higher and higher until the cabin's windows vanished entirely. Storm after storm blurred the world into a white nothingness, where even the trees disappeared behind curtains of spinning ice. 6 hours of daylight, sometimes less, the sun rising half-heartedly before sinking again, as if it too was tired of the cold. Inside, the family listened, to the crackle of the stove, to the soft groan of wood expanding and contracting, to the slow, rhythmic thud of snow sliding off the roof, sometimes inches, sometimes entire sheets at once. And yet strangely there was peace here, a warmth built from routine and resilience, from wool mittens drying near the stove, from soup simmering quietly in a heavy iron pot, from stories whispered between generations to pass the long hours of a winter that felt like it might never end. The Izba was not just a shelter, it was a declaration, a statement carved into the frozen world. We will not surrender. And every year, through frostbite, storms, darkness, and exhaustion, these little wooden fortresses kept families alive, defying a winter that would have happily erased them. So as you drift deeper into this story, feel the warmth of the peck, hear the wind outside, and settle gently into the quiet bravery of those who built a home where no home should logically exist. Chapter 2. The glow of warmth from frosty origins. Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the serene warmth of your ultimately cozy abode. But don't be fooled. The roots of that comfort span a history as chilling as a popsicle in a snowstorm. Imagine this. You awake in a world where simply staying warm feels like an Olympic sport, where civilization has yet to grasp the greatness of central heating, the dark ages of keeping your toes from freezing solid. But before you drift away into slumber and fantasies of soft blankets and heated mattress pads, let's dabble in delightful absurdities. Can you picture being a weary traveler in the 1700s? Wandering through snowstorms so fierce they make your favorite blizzard book seem like an afternoon stroll in the park? Ever find yourself gazing at your own unequipped fridge and ponder, what would I do without a microwave? Imagine having to rely on frostbitten fingers to scrape snow off food instead. Dinner is served, if you can, find it. Now, take a deep breath, no, not of that artificially sweetened air wafting through your modern apartment. Imagine the scent of wood smoke curling through the air like nostalgia itself, thawing the chilled inside of a log cabin known as an Izba. Congratulations. You've just woken up in 1/8th century Russia where, much like your morning commute, getting out of bed is the beginning of a treacherous journey through icy chaos and the ever-present threat of snowdrifts. Let's acknowledge the irony here for a moment. While you slide into your cozy, memory-foamed splendor, imagine someone constructing your dream bed from logs they chopped, while wondering if the nearby wolf pack was less likely to nibble on their toes than the freezing chill themselves. Each morning, when they peeled back their eyes from their hay-stuffed pillow, they were truly embracing life in the extremes and experience no amount of online shopping could prepare you for. As you nestle deeper into your sheets, let's imagine the idyllic warmth of that Izba cradling you as it fought against a -50-degree monster outside. You can almost hear the pop of the logs heating in the fire, each crackle a slight rebellion against nature's simplest of threats, cold. Have you ever had a moment where you just wanted to take a cozy blanket and wrap it around your life choices? Well, these Izba travelers did just that, but with logs, moss, and a fantasy about not becoming popsicles while they slept. Now, let's indulge our senses as we ascend to the crown jewel of the Izba, the hearth. Imagine the crackling fire sparking merriment amidst the frost, the smell of warm bread wafting in the air, mingling with the stale remnants of last week's cabbage stew. Ah yes, nothing says home sweet home like the aroma of fermented cabbage draping through the space like an awkward holiday visit from an uncle who only shows up when there's free food. But that isn't the only treat to stir your imagination. As the heat and the stale stew fighting for dominance in your dreams, consider the exhilarating sounds of frost crunching beneath the footfalls of local townsfolk as they merrily provide sustenance to one another. You ever considered how hard it must have been to balance carving out a life while competing against the elements? Like trying to take a selfie while riding a unicycle through a blizzard, a humble yet unfortunate endeavor. As you drift deeper in the comforting embrace of your own modern bed, just remember, every creak of your frame is a friendly reminder of the Izba as ancient of days. Each squeak and sigh is merely your wooden ancestors whispering timeless jokes about winter in an era when every frosty inhale echoed the line of too much cold and not enough blankets. Ah, yes. Let's transition back to the memory of that cozy warmth late at night, where glimmers of cross-legged laughter float like tender snowflakes through the fireplace. In every wooden wall of the Izba, there resides a familial spirit that felt the icy grip of winter wrap its fingers around every now and then, the kind of warmth that transcends generations. Picture yourself cuddled up with loved ones, the shared laughter wrapping around you like a well-loved quilt, as the winds outside battle continuously against the hardy walls that shield you from nature's frosty scalpel. But the moment the sun rises, that comfort will transform. The heated logs will cool, and the frost will re-establish itself. Like your favorite sitcom getting cancelled too soon, the mundane becomes inevitable once more, until you remember that every morning brought not just cold but also warmth that rose with the sun, promising yet another day of life, the simplest reminder of survival amidst the chaos. So, as you gently slip into that cozy realm of dreams, envision the Izba, its logs standing tall against each winter, its laughter echoed in the hearts of its families, holding tight to memories powerful enough to challenge the numbing chill outside. And in this realm of peaceful dreams, carry with you that connection to those who endured, who filled their homes with warmth through creativity, bundling against the chill with laughter, warmth, and just maybe some wayward singing that sounded worse than a cat caught in a blizzard. Now let yourself sink deeper into your warm cocoon and drift into dreams where the frost is merely a distant whisper over the laughter of generations gone by. Sweet dreams await. Chapter 3. The Great Pipe Explosion of Modern Woes. Now, let's wander into a chilling contrast. One that's as surprising as finding out your favorite snack has a hot cousin. Imagine the sound of a modern home's water pipe, a stout little tube just minding its own business, when suddenly, BAM! It explodes like a cannon going off at an unfortunate wedding. Water sprays everywhere, as if a small geyser just decided to audition for a documentary on extreme plumbing failures. You might be wondering, why did this happen? Did the pipe resent its monotonous existence? Or was it just tired of sharing space with your late-night snack choices? Now, before we dive into the delightful details of that chaotic plumbing moment, let's put this bizarre catastrophe into context. In the grand tapestry of history, it's a laughably absurd glimpse into the lives of both our modern selves and the hardy Russian peasants of the 18th century. Picture it, the lavishly quaint homes of modern homeowners, complete with central heating, and compare that with the rugged, time-worn log cabins of Imperial Russia. The cabins were resilient, steadfast, and as durable as grandma's old recipes that somehow survived 30 years of culinary evolution. Peasants built their homes with timber meticulously harvested from the surrounding forests. These logs, like stubborn marathon runners, resisted the harshest of winters, keeping occupants warm, albeit at the cost of some fragrant goat-smelling comfort. If only today's water pipes could learn a thing or two from the sturdy craftsmanship of these primitive abodes. After all, when the temperature drops to minus 50 degrees, you want a house that won't buckle under pressure, unlike that one friend who melts when the karaoke machine starts belting out Bohemian Rhapsody. In contrast to these wooden fortresses, modern plumbing seems to be the delicate flower of the homeworld. You know the type, whining whenever something isn't just right. Oh, it's too cold. It complains, and boom, your kitchen turns into a comedic splash zone. The antique tea kettle might survive 4 winters without a scratch, but your water pipes seem to have a vendetta against you. It's as if they whisper to each other, "Hey, let's wait until they have guests over, shall we?" So you can imagine the scene, the quiet evening before the chaos. You pour yourself a cup of tea, blissfully unaware that your modern-day fortress is preparing for war. As you settle in, typing an unworthy romance on social media, hoping for compliments on your filtered self, below the surface, catastrophe brews. The water has decided to freeze and expand like an overstuffed burrito. Will it break into 1,000 bits or just one big boom? Spoiler, it's the latter. With a thunderous wham, it erupts, sending you into a veritable interpretive dance as you scramble to protect your electronics from an unexpected rainstorm inside your home. It's comical, a scene plucked straight from a sitcom. However, within the walls of a peasant cabin during Imperial Russia, such outward displays of failed plumbing were a distant fantasy. Those poor folks were too busy battling the burly hands of winter itself. Imagine waking up in such a log cabin, the frost on your nose greeting you each morning like an old friend who forgot to bring a hat. Inside, you would be nestled under layers of wool and the faint aroma of peat smoke still clinging to the air. Energy and warmth were salvaged from the woodpecker's hard labor, and the only way your home literally fell apart was if a bear decided that your roof was the perfect place for a nap. If that log cabin had a plumbing system, it consists of a wooden bucket and a shovel, and it would probably be more reliable than today's pipes. That's the beauty of extreme rustic living. No need for a plumbing audit, just light a fire and let the logs and moss do the heavy lifting. You either lived in harmony with nature, or you learned to brave the cold with a ridiculous number of socks and a dubious amount of huddling. And now, let's take a moment, a mini intermission in our laughter, to reflect on what the peasants would say if they saw your modern home erupting like Old Faithful. Just picture them with their hardy, lined faces, shrugging their shoulders and quipping, "Looks like they should have just moved to the cabin. Bet they wish they had some good old firewood instead." In a world where a log cabin stood resentful against minus 50 degrees, the sturdiness of those cabins could break many modern ego-inflated plumbing systems. Indeed, with thick walls that proved more resilient than your neighbor's insistence that his DIY renovation project was saving him money, the peasant's home was the epitome of rugged charm. And oh, how you might wish you could swap your delicate plumbing for a good, solid wooden floor. But we wouldn't want to. Miss out on the benefits of the modern phrases like having a water feature in your living room, or the forgiving pleasures of high-speed internet. The explosion is just a minor hiccup in the symphony of modern living. Who needs a perfectly functioning home anyway? It's all about the canon-like surprises. So, remember that next time your modern comforts fail you and you find yourself in a surprising water ballet in your kitchen, at least your ancestors would be laughing hysterically about your drama. And who knows, maybe they'll approve of your resilient spirit, even if that spirit's doing the Macarena in puddles of freshly sprayed water. Chapter 4. The Timber of Titans and My Big Weightlifting Mistake. Hey guys, welcome to a journey colder than winter's heart, where we'll explore the peculiar ways the sturdy Russian log cabins face down bone-chilling, you guessed it, minus 50-degree winters. Picture this. A weathered yet powerful hand, gripping a heavy axe as if it were a precious heirloom, cutting logs as precision-engineered as a broken smartphone app. If this doesn't set you up for a cozy, sleepy adventure, I don't know what will. But first, and only if you enjoy the humor in timber warfare against Siberian winters, do us a solid, like, subscribe, and comment. But only if you really liked it, because we're all in this together, like peasants huddled for warmth. Now, dim those lights, lean back, and grab your extra blanket. Do you ever wonder what it's like to wake up in a log cabin with the harsh whisper of winter knocking at the door? Imagine the cold seeping in through the cracks, while you question whether yesterday's turnips count as a legitimate protein source. Or what if you woke up to find a bear having a bad dream on your roof? Spoiler alert, the bear wins. Congratulations, you've just landed in the iconic 18th century, specifically the world of pearled ice and timber giants. The Russian wilderness, absolutely teeming with logs and winter survival skills. And you're here, groggy, wondering where your morning coffee has vanished amidst the snows of time. Let's talk about that axe. The grip belongs to a gentleman, or perhaps an extraordinarily dedicated peasant, let's call him Vasily. In a moment of pure creative genius, Vasily's arm is powered by generations of inherited knowledge, swinging that heavy axe with a kind of precision that could only be rivaled by the best organizational team at an IKEA. Each swing, a rhythm of labor that echoes through the snowy wilderness, a symphony of survival. As Vasily splits the logs, you can't help but admire his craftsmanship. The joints are so tight that not even the finest knife could prattle its way in. You secretly wonder if he has a secret log-making competition going on, where the reigning champion earns a lifetime supply of, well, it's a mystery. because no one actually had snacks back then. The manly artistry of a log cabin was where life's essentials reigned supreme. A roof over his head, protection from bears, and the ability to stay warm even when the weather outside made polar bears shiver. Now, you might assume that living like Vasily means embracing nature like an exceptionally smelly hug, and you'd be mostly right. The moment you step inside, the glorious aroma of something you just can't quite place. Is it a warm mix of pitchy wood and the unforgettable fragrance of goat? Perhaps it's both. Either way, it's an olfactory experience that a modern air freshener simply cannot replicate. As the frost bites at your toes each morning, you realize socks are inadequately classified as a winter essential. Instead, it might be wise to invent a footwear system that comes equipped with woolen boots, perhaps. You know, just in case the ground starts throwing surprise ice curls your way. Feel that? It's the frost wielding an invisible dagger, stabbing at you through the various layers of wool you wore in the hopes of becoming a trendy, human-sized onion. Daily survival was a game of who can layer more without looking like an advertisement for camping gear. Vasily has it down to an art. You? Not so much. You look like heaped laundry gone terribly wrong. With every swing of his axe, Vasily might even be considering world peace or the best way to cuddle a goat through dinner. Because, as you can imagine, midnight feasts in the log cabin often meant curried oats lovingly prepared while dodging flatulence from the farm animals taking refuge within. A reality that modern homes could never recreate because, let's be honest, those organic, gluten-free recipes just can't compete with a hearty bowl of whatever fell off the wagon during last month's famine. But wait, it's time to grab a snack before we dive deeper into our log cabin. A warm, inviting fortress from the frost, like a bear hug in social distancing times. And as you shuffle through layers of straw, trying to dodge the misplaced goat and the mysterious smell that seems to originate from your old slippers, you might ask yourself, wasn't this cabin supposed to warm you up, or at least ward off potential bear attacks? But honestly, if Vasily and friends could tackle Arctic conditions with hand-carved logs and a touch of humor, then you can figure out your terrain too. Don't you remember those historical shenanigans where the human spirit learned to laugh through simple hardships? So when faced with the prospect of freezing through breakfast with an extra hairy friend, just carefully tread your way past the bleeding peeves of barnyard, gossip, and stride confidently into the future, a time when the only axe you own is purely for chopping veggies, not becoming a lumberjack sous chef. And as you settle back into the rhythmic sounds of the modern world from the comfort of your warm bed, of course, you can't help but chuckle gently into your pillow at the absurdities of history, gloriously teetering between hardship and humor. And maybe, just maybe, the spirit of Vasily whispers through the woods, reminding you to embrace life's quirks while you drift into slumber. Because once winter bites, it helps to remember those hardy souls who laughed, chopped wood, and survived not just another day, but an entire frosty life. Chapter 5. A Red Glow and Smoky Dreams. Hey guys, welcome back to the Frosty Frontier, where we swim through snow deeper than your last holiday shopping experience. Tonight, we're diving into the life of a young lad, illuminated by the flickering glow of a clay stove, desperately providing warmth in a home that may or may not have a resident goat with questionable hygiene. Yes, we're plunging headfirst into the 18th century, where your biggest worry wasn't Wi-Fi going down, but rather whether or not the fire would stay lit long enough to prevent your family from becoming human popsicles. Now, before we embark on this chilly journey of survival and exuberant logs, do us a solid. Like, subscribe, and comment, but only if you actually enjoy this. We're not trying to twist your arm like a medieval peasant trying to wring out a wet tunic. So, dim those lights, throw on a cozy blanket, maybe one that's not dusted with hay, and settle in. Imagine waking up to the slow crackle of a clay stove while the frost outside gives your window a stunning frosted glass effect you didn't ask for. Ever wonder how many times one could accidentally trip over their own feet when rushing to guard a diminishing fire? Or panic if a badger sidestepped into your living room for a midnight snack? Picture this. It's midnight. Your stomach growls louder than an angry bear. And of course the most logical solution is to tiptoe past sleeping livestock and forage for last week's turnips. All while trying not to make any noise because who wants to wake up sleeping furballs? Really? Congratulations. You've just woken up in the 1700s, where every morning feels like a twisted game of Survivor, Cabin Edition. Imagine a small boy, let's call him Alexei, kneeling before the massive clay stove, bathed in an almost mystical red glow. The soft, crackling sounds of the flames dance around him, whispering sweet nothings of warmth. But instead of a gracious embrace, they threaten to evaporate faster than an ice cube in July. How did he end up here, you ask? Well, the answer isn't simple, unless you qualify sarcasm as simple. Blame it on a historic penchant for fantastic firewood craftsmanship and the thrill of bitter winter greetings that life throws your way like snowballs with varying amounts of ice in them. Right there, in the heart of that log cabin, Alexei finds himself on a perilous quest. His mission: feed the fire. The stakes? Higher than your heating bill during the winter months. Every flicker of that flame is a reminder that one false move, a single wayward log in the house could turn into a cozy, fiery sauna that no one had requested. A slight panicked glance outside reveals scenes that would make even the bravest lemonade stand look like a business hazard. Is it a snowstorm coming? Or a rogue pack of wolves looking for late-night snacks? As he gingerly feeds the fire, because nothing says survival like throwing in wood pieces large, enough to double as impromptu furniture, he recalls tales of his ancestors, mighty Russians, not just battling the elements, but giving them a good dose of sass in return. Each log he pushes into the hollow belly of the stove seems like a silent rebellion against the searing cold sneaking through cracks that almost seem to giggle at his futile attempts to stay warm. The air inside the cabin is a complex cocktail. It's spicy, smoky, and laced with the odd hint of burned turnip stew. Breathe it in. Each inhalation fills Alexei's lungs with memories of every winter's effort. The walls, crafted from timber logs that seem like they have faced storms, and the very gatekeepers of Siberian winter, hold secrets like where Aunt Tanya hid her prized goat cheese. You might as well know the truth. They're not just walls. They're archives of laughter, tears, and the occasional below-zero-induced existential crisis. But let's shift gears. Can you fathom how many layers one must don just to brave such a brisk morning? As a peasant, you've transformed into a DIY mannequin, each layer of clothing a new form of medieval armor. At least 10 garments deep, you might feel like an onion. But unlike modern life where we'd swipe right for the perfect outfit, you're stuck wearing a current ensemble that looks suspiciously like a bag full of misses. And here's a fun thought. Picture Alexei chatting with his friends as they huddle around this vital stove like it's the ultimate fan club. I could skim through Instagram, one might say. Or I could just fan shop for free from the warmth of the fire. Little do they know, Alexei is the fire whisperer amongst them, fueling his dreams of warmth, and more importantly the title of best log stacker in the neighborhood's upcoming wood-splitting extravaganza. There's laughter, camaraderie, and perhaps the faint sound of a goat bleeding in agreement during those heated discussions about log stacking ratios versus fire survival skills. Remember, it's not just about the size of your logs, it's how you place them, quips one of the friends. There's a moment of silence, and then raucous laughter erupts as they high-five, some mistakenly hitting the goat in the process. As the night deepens, the flickering glow of the fire becomes both comfort and a glaring reminder. Warmth is precious. Friends are plentiful, but the turnips, they could use a microwave. But that's a thought for another life. So, settle in, dear listeners, as our adventure through log cabins pulsates with a hint of humor and heaps of historical nostalgia. Because in the realm of frost, friendship, and the ever-elusive warmth, you too can endure, and perhaps giggle, as we bid farewell to our young wood-wielding, winter-defying hero, Alexei, in a world where each cold night reminds us, laughter is truly the best insulation. And with that, allow yourself to drift off to sleep, imagining cozy log cabins, flickering fires, and the warmth of camaraderie. Because during those freezing nights, a good laugh can keep you warmer than many a thick woolen blanket. Chapter 6. The King of Comfort on the Petch Stove. Hey guys, welcome back to our frozen wonderland. Tonight, we're diving deeper into the frosty saga of life in Imperial Russia, where old grandfathers reigned supreme atop their clay thrones, and the stoves were the real MVP's most valuable petch. Get ready to meet our rugged protagonist, an elderly bearded grandfather who practically holds court on his majestic petch stove, ruling the household with warmth and wit sharper than the chill in the air outside. So, Grab that cozy blanket and imagine the comforting scent of baked bread mixed with the subtle whiff of something that might be sheep. Let's just say hygiene wasn't exactly a priority. Picture this. It's the middle of winter, and your biggest dilemma isn't whether to wear pants or pajamas for your Zoom meeting, but rather whether you can risk another trip outside to gather firewood without freezing into a human ice sculpture. Have you ever found yourself panic baking bread in the oven just to fill the house with warmth? And if you were to request your neighbor's secrets for staying warm, would they hand you a goat or a small mountain of logs? Well, welcome to the realm of Russian log cabins, where the only thing thicker than the walls is the humor. So, dim those lights, snuggle deeper into your blanket, and let's prepare to journey back to a time where every step felt like a dance with frostbite. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the 1700s, where the air is crisp enough to shatter your dreams instantly, as long as you can stay awake long enough to dream. Imagine this. Perched high atop a massive pitch stove, squinting through a thick, wispy beard that's kept fuzzy and wise by decades of wisdom, and possibly a day-old potato or two. You are now the elderly grandfather, the self-proclaimed monarch of comfort. From your lofty throne, the entire household sits sprawled beneath you, looking up with both admiration and a touch of fear, like children before a wise wizard, or at least before someone who knows where the extra blankets are hidden. The flames below flicker, crackle, and pop, offering you a front row seat to the greatest show on earth, the never-ending battle between a stubborn fire and the ruthless chill beyond the walls. You might even opine that these little dances should be nominated for an Oscar. Suddenly, a shriek from below shatters the peace. Is it an angry cat? A goat on a rampage? Nope. Just one of your grandkids who's realizing that the last potato has mysteriously disappeared, and they are convinced it's your doing. Why would I hoard potatoes when I have unlimited firewood? You chuckle silently, your staff lightly tapping the stove, because after all, royal decrees cannot be issued without a little dramatic flair. Now, let's take a moment to appreciate the craftsmanship of the pitch. This baby isn't just a stove, it's practically a work of art. Constructed with warmth-infused clay bricks, its belly serves as a furnace, a cooking surface, and occasionally, a bed for anyone too weary from wrestling with the cold outside. Have you ever thought about how heated debates over where to place the remote paled in comparison to family squabbles over pet real estate? A warm spot on the stove was the ultimate status symbol. One could practically hear the teenagers fighting over who got to sit closest while the others huddled near the door. Because yes, door meant nothing when it comes to warmth. Your elevated position allows you to zoom in on the various family units bustling about, each member a curious blend of anxiety and creativity. You can almost see the gears turning in their heads. Is it possible to bake bread without losing half your arm to frostbite? One wonders, while another contemplates using the goat as a makeshift blanket. And oh, the subtleties of this rustic existence. Picture the discussions that swirl up like steam from our proven pech, where ideas about weather survival ripple through the chaos. One of the kids bursts forth, "Why can't we just invent heated jackets?" You smirk, picturing some poor fabric welder trying to make the world's first warming cloak out of wool and firewood. But alas, your grandchildren's vision extends just about as far as last week's leftovers. Until that is, they unearth an old treasure from way back when, a bountiful pile of straw. Who knows what needs a good stuffing? Time to make this rustic sofa a bit more, rustic. You muse to yourself, drawing laughter like warmth from the fire. Wouldn't a shockingly uncomfortable straw-stuffed seat be the talk of the town? Or at least the lively gossip of the chickens? Honestly, nothing says, "I love you," like a surprise pointy hedgehog family will cheerfully welcome to the warmth. Of course, you can't forget your steadfast companions, the household animals. Does your loyal goat occasionally eye your grand perch with envy? Absolutely. Is it plotting a coup as members munch on hay? Of course. And probably relishing in the fact that they're snug while the rest of you battle against your frozen toes. There's a sense that perhaps the goat is the real master of comfort, snuggled warm in its belly of hay, though perhaps you should investigate whether that hoofed creature has figured out the secret to cozy living without risk of losing an ear to the elements. As the flames crackle on, dust motes dance like little spirits, swirling under the whims of the pitch. No matter how fierce the winter or how precarious the cooking ventures, warmth, laughter, and cozy hospitality rise above it all, painting a perfect picture of a Russian winter. So, dear listeners, embrace this gentle, absurdly humorous tale of life on top of a patch, where laughter truly warms the soul and every flicker of the fire reminds you of the vibrant life buzzing within those log walls. And just like that, the cold night melts away, and sleep beckons you to wander through the velvety realms of your imagination, where ghosts and stoves coalesce in delightful absurdity. So, drift off, feeling that warmth envelop you like a cozy blanket, knowing that laughter is your best defense against the frosty fears that life may bring. Chapter 7. The Bearded Conductor of Frosty Decrees. Hey guys, welcome back to our symphony of chilly absurdity. Tonight, we're savoring the nostalgia of Russian log cabins, where winter's icy grip met its match in a weather-beaten old man, wielding a wooden staff like a maestro conducting a frostbitten orchestra. Get ready for a laugh through the teeth kind of saga, as we find ourselves on the frosty precipice of the 18th and 19th centuries, where every family drama heated by a petch stove could be soothed with a simple though questionable potato. So, grab that extra thick blanket. This isn't just for cozy vibes, but a protective layer against the Arctic chills seeping through your imagination. And look, while we're on the subject, have you ever asked yourself how improper seating arrangements on a patch could result in diplomatic incidents? Or why the goat seems more comfortable than you ever will be in the middle of winter? Imagine navigating family feuds over firewood like a game of Monopoly, but with tent stakes and unwashed laundry. Now, picture this. You're casually lounging in your living room, potentially pondering baked goods, when suddenly, bam, you've just awoken in the year 1802. And let me tell you, the air is so cold it would make an ice cube shiver. What do you see? A log cabin with walls thicker than the lengths of silence at a family gathering. Breathing makes little clouds dance in the air as you settle into your role as the wise, slightly grumpy grandfather perched high on a perch. But wait, who's that down below? The chaos erupts beneath you as your family scurries like enthusiastic ants, trying to maintain an illusion of productivity, all while casting furtive glances at the steaming goodness coming from the pech. And there you are, looming above, like a benevolent, albeit stern, ruler with your trusty wooden stick. Think of it as an ancient magic wand of authority. With every well-placed tap against the stove's side, you summon respect, or perhaps just an awkward pause, while trying to figure out what exactly you're scolding them for this time. Let's paint the scene. That glorious petch stove, glowing with warmth, adjacent to a kitchen that somehow doubles as the dining room and also the living room, and possibly the science lab for potato experiments. The fragrance of bubbling soup mingles with the tantalizing aroma of burning wood, triggering thoughts not of hunger, but of the great philosophical debate. Is it possible to bake bread and not lose half your eyebrows in the process? Ah, the responses of your kin. Let's just throw in some extra roots and hope for the best, yells one, brandishing a suspicious-looking vegetable like a battle standard. Meanwhile, your loyal goat, the real ruler of this household, sidles up to the table, giving you that look, the "Are you really going to eat that?" look. The goat understands too well that the line between culinary prowess and utter madness is as fine as the frost that coats your windows. And amid this cacophony, there's a plucking moment. A silence hangs in the air like a ripe potato as you lift your stick, a sign of authority, a gesture to reintegrate order, or maybe just a reminder that the heating system is not designed to accommodate potato madness. It's old man alert level, very high. Mother's heart flutters as she clutches a wooden spoon, ready to defend the last remaining remnants of last week's borscht. But let's talk about the decor, shall we? Your log home felt like a race between rustic charm and frost coverage. Shelves lined with jars of what you hope are fruits, or maybe more likely, an experiment gone wrong involving pickled turnips. You feel they might have been intended as something great, perhaps even edible, if only the winter would end before you found out. Each jar standing with the proud defiance of a contestant in the great Who Wants to Be the Unfortunate Supper game show. And then there's the artistry of your floor, which could very well be an endangered species. Floorboards? Ha! It's more like a dirt and straw combination, where accidents happen with the same frequency as bad reality TV shows. You can see the evidence of each day's battles against the cold, patching together straw like an ancient quilt if a quilt were ridiculously rough and promised to host more fleas than friends for a sleepover. This is the epitome of domestic comfort, folks. As your family huddles together, plotting survivor strategies that parallel modern day, Netflix watching sessions, who gets the prime seat on the pec tonight. The stakes couldn't be higher. No one wants to be the one banished to the floor, risking frostbite with each night's growing temperatures. Loyalty could very well depend on whom gets to eat the last crumb of unsalted butter. Just then, the faintest crackle emanating from your high seat in the petch sends shivers down their spines. One of these days, you declare, raising that commanding stick, I'm going to invent an entire line of fashionable winter jackets. But before you can regale them with your latest and thoroughly impractical design dream, your precious goat loudly interjects the moment with a grunt that sounds like a deep philosophical sigh. It's already cold enough. The house springs into action as crackling laughter intertwines with the heating struggles on what humanity can endure. Amid the chaos, you realize laughter consistently outwits the winter blues. Ah, my dear friends, this is the essence of your rule as sovereign of the petch. Warmth through humor, bundled in a thick woolen blanket of absurdity, much like life in a Russian log cabin. And as the evening drifts on, you remind everyone, though you are merely a ruler of soft patchworks, that perhaps the true secret to keeping spirits warm in the cold months is connection, laughter, and a solid stash of sometimes questionable potatoes. As the flame flickers and the shadows dance across the walls, you bask in the cozy chaos, knowing you've raised more than a family. You've created a medieval sitcom that could rival anything on modern television. So as the logs crackle back there, drift into your own relaxed reverie of imagination, burning away the chill of your worries with laughter and warmth. Chapter 8. The Frozen Kindling Dilemma. Ah, winter in Imperial Russia. A time when the air didn't just nudge at your nose but gave it a stern poke, followed by a friendly slap across the face. Picture this. It's a grim afternoon in the 1700s. Snowflakes drifting down like confused little white butterflies, each one potentially more lost than the average peasant at a fancy dinner party. Now, you've settled comfortably by the petch stove, but oh dear, the fire is dwindling. The embers are just about to give up the ghost, and your lad is faced with a calamity worse than a potato famine, a dead fire. Let's take a second to breathe this in, shall we? The room carries the scent of slightly burnt borscht and the undertones of anxiety as the flames flicker like a bad horror movie, trying to decide whether to scare you or just plain confuse you. Your son, wide-eyed and trembling like a nervous chicken on a January afternoon, discovers his hands are as numb as his last romantic interest. Oh great, he thinks. Just another chance to fight the elements cheap, on a budget, even with frozen kindling. Now, if you think starting a fire in your warm, cozy apartment with a stray lighter is daunting, imagine the pressure of reviving a dying inferno in the face of minus 50-degree temperatures. The kid's got a pile of frozen twigs that look like they've survived a pack of wolves. He grasps them with fingers that are practically icicles themselves. What is this? A winter-themed episode of Survivor. Alternatively, it's just 1802. And he's faced with something more terrifying than a goose at a family gathering, a damp, frozen log that's pretending to be kindling. Nothing says, we might perish tonight, like the physics experiment gone wrong, currently gripping your entire household. The moments stretch like a taffy pulled too far. He's shaking, trembling like a llama in a snowstorm. You want to start a fire, buddy? You might want to ask him. Well, here's an idea. We could just huddle together, create some warmth with our own frantic desire not to freeze to death. Glancing around your log cabin, you realize it's as icy as the feelings that linger from family discussions about who forgot to feed the goat. What's he to do now? How about the unthinkable? He shuffles toward that pile of wet branches with the grace of someone attempting brain surgery while blindfolded. There's a technique at play here, draping layers of desperation and hope, donned in thick wool sweaters and a sense of impending doom. As he tries to carve out tiny shavings, he might as well be sculpting the world's tiniest ice palace, each shiver sending shards of potential joy back into the icy void. You can almost hear the winter chuckling at this feeble display. You think those will light up easily? It asks. Perhaps try some jigsaw puzzles while you're at it? Maybe you'll make a fire and discover the meaning of life. Yet, all around you, your family cozy together, crackling laughter managing to cut through the cold like a hot knife through frozen butter. Remember last winter, you chime in with a cheeky grin, when we all huddled above the fire looking like a bunch of penguins trying to start a pottery class. Who knew our biggest survival tool was singing a family song loudly enough to scare the wolves away? As your son struggles with the kindling frosty fingers, working like they've met their worst enemy. The air itself, you can see the wheels turning in his head. Maybe I should just set an appointment with a wizard. You know, some ancient sorcery could solve this cold dilemma. The possibility brings a smirk, even as the only magic here is the sheer determination to not perish in this frigid fortress of wood and wild beasts outside. Trapped in this moment of chaos, perhaps your son could use a good giggle, because what's colder than reality is the thought of using frozen twigs. As a fire starter, it's like asking a snowman to do your taxes. And with every attempt he makes to strike fire with these unyielding battalions of ice, you nearly cry from laughter, interjecting, "Don't worry, son. This is merely the cosmic universe testing your mettle also, your ability to withstand bitter disappointment." Suddenly, there's the addition of yet another comical consideration. If only you had a warm goat to snuggle with. However, the goat has demonstrated a remarkable level of disdain for all human potential, especially when it comes to newfangled ideas like warmth. Perhaps they have a bet against survival. You just can't even begin to fathom this goat's internal investment strategy. Yet the comedy of errors plays on, embers becoming smoldering memories, and your son, despite his Arctic trials, knows there's something ridiculous about this whole escapade. Somewhere deep within, he might even chuckle at the absurdity of fearing that a fire could die on him. "It's just winter, Dad. It's not like we had a warranty on survival." The snow continues to fall outside, teasing your cabin like nature's way of saying, "Guess what? This is your life now." And so, with laughter swirling around like snowflakes in a blizzard, it's a gentle reminder that even in the most absurd challenges presented by life, whether kindling, chasing, warmth, or a goat contemplating his life choices, the heart can burn brightly, cranking up the temperature to comfortable in the midst of the Arctic. So, as the fire teeters on the edge of existence and laughter fills the room, perhaps you'll feel that strangely comforting belief weave its way into this wild narrative. Even as the last embers shift into twilight, warmth resides as an attitude stealthily radiating through layers of woolen absurdity, and somehow, hilariously, beats back the cold once more. Chapter 9. The Colossal Currents of Heat. Hey guys, welcome back to another night of mildly interesting history. Tonight, we dive deeper into the belly of winter, where the cold snuck in like an unwanted relative at a family reunion. Sounds cozy, right? But fear not. We're exploring the architectural marvel of the Pech stove, the unsung hero of Russian log cabins, which practically winked at death by frostbite. Did you know that it was so big it could practically host its own book club? Just imagine a bunch of hot bricks congregating and discussing the latest trends in cozy warmth. Before we dive in, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment at least if you find this soothing or mildly belly laugh inducing. If not, just watch in silence and we'll call it a fine evening. Now, dim those lights, put on a fan if you feel fancy, and get ready to be encapsulated in the fascinatingly absurd world of the 18th and 19th centuries. Have you ever considered how often you have to charge your phone in winter? Imagine if the only thing keeping you cozy was a massive brick oven that required more fuel than you'd need to power a small army. Or have you ever struggled with your heating bill, feeling like you've been making donations to the utility gods? Picture our Russian ancestors heating their homes with ingenuity, lots and lots of ingenuity, and maybe a sprinkle of desperation. Congratulations, my time-traveling friend. You've just woken up in a snug little log cabin somewhere in the dreariest midwinter of Imperial Russia. Cold? Oh, that's the understatement of the century. It's freezing! The kind of cold that sneaks into your bones and sets up a permanent vacation home. Let's take a moment to gaze at the magnificent structure of the Pech stove, which honestly could have been mistaken for a medieval art installation. Imagine it, towering in the corner like a guardian of warmth, resplendent in its brick and clay splendor. Its width could house an entire family of bears looking for an Airbnb that comes equipped with a fireplace. This colossal creation had more nooks, crannies, and serpentine flue passages than a detective novel, ensuring that once a fire got going, the whole house could be transformed into a cozy cocoon or an awkward sauna if you weren't careful. When you ignite the flames, oh boy, the pitch stove doesn't just haphazardly distribute warmth. It radiates heat through those complex channels, like an overzealous waiter at a five-star restaurant, making sure every corner of the room gets the attention it deserves. As the fire crackles like a comedy show unfolding in the distance, you're really witnessing a heating system that could rival modern engineering. It might as well be chatting up your family about the latest gossip in the village with every puff of warmth it releases. But trust me, tending to this stove was no lazy afternoon affair. The fuel wasn't just any random stack of branches. You needed well-dried logs that were sometimes seasoned more carefully than a Michelin star chef special. Imagine standing outside, knees shaking, hands freezing, contemplating whether your prized three-legged stool would be useful as firewood if the situation got dire enough. Sacrificing the stool seems like a reasonable trade-off for survival, you'd think, wondering if you'd go down in history as the family member who let the heat go to their head, literally. And when it came to operating the pitch stove, it demanded a dedication that even your most committed friend might raise an eyebrow at. There was an intricate ritual to layer precisely enough wood to keep the fire alive without accidentally creating an inadvertent sauna. Who wrote the manual on that? Certainly not the guy huddled in the corner with frostbitten toes. In fact, if modern home improvement shows had existed, they might have had a special segment, Surviving in the Arctic, the Peck Stove edition. Let's talk about the fabulous flue passages, those twisting funnels creating a path through which heat spreads out like gossip in a small village. You could almost picture them whispering tales of warmth under their breath, whirling thoughts on how cold it might be for old Olga 3 cabins down, probably sipping non-existent hot cocoa. You know, nothing says reliable heat source like a feverish swirl of air and serendipity. As these currents of heat circulate, you start feeling a delightful contrast to the frigid air blowing outside. It's like sitting next to the world's largest, fluffiest cat if the cat emitted warmth like an oven and had a charming tendency to crackle instead of purr. Now, you might occasionally catch a whiff of what used to be supper, lingering in the air like a slightly cramped version of dinner chat. Nothing like a dose of charcoal-scented nostalgia, combined with the warmth radiating from the pitch stove to round off the perfect evening under Russian civilization's spotlight. Remember that time I nearly roasted my butt on the stove? Good times, you'd chuckle, reminiscing as you flip the log over for more stories and slightly crispy bread. Eventually, the flickering light dances across the wood-paneled walls, every movement telling the highs and lows of communal living. The family gathers together, wrapped like sausage links in their woolen shawls, trying to remember if it's their turn to tell a ghost story or if someone else has already blown out the flames in their encroaching winter madness. So here you are, warmed by the Peck stove, the giggles of family filling the air, while outside the howling winds pull a melodramatic storm. Maybe surviving winter doesn't require an elaborate plan, just a good stove, a sense of humor, and a warm heart ready to embrace the crazy ride that is life in Imperial Russia. As laughter and warmth envelop the room, you realize maybe this isn't so bad after all. Or at least, it's not where. The very real danger of freezing solid rests. It's just another evening filled with warmth, togetherness, and a whole lot of absurd history right beside that exceptional facilities manager known as the Peck Stove. Chapter number 9. Chapter 10. The Sizzling Symphony of the Petch Oven. Hey guys, welcome back to another night of mildly interesting history. Tonight, we turn up the heat, quite literally. Ever wonder what it would be like to have an oven you could roast an entire family of geese in, while simultaneously baking a loaf of bread that could double as a doorstop? Well, grab a warm drink, because we're venturing into the delightful chaos of the Petch Oven, the gastronomic cornerstone of Russian log cabins during the chilly 18th and 19th centuries. Now, before we dive in, how many of you have been in a heated debate over what to have for dinner? Is it going to be pizza, or maybe sushi? And here, we've got our friends in Imperial Russia, grappling with the even bigger dilemma. Do we cook the bread or the cabbage first? Oh, if only we had a Petch oven. Just imagine that aroma wafting through the cabin while wondering if your flatbread will come out perfectly crispy or resemble a soggy sock. But hold that. Before we get lost in our imaginations, please like, subscribe, and comment if you find this mildly enjoyable, that is. If you don't, well, sometimes silence is golden, like the crust of a perfectly baked loaf of bread. Now, picture this. You've just stumbled into a cozy cabin after a long day of grappling with the biting winds of winter, and your first greeting is not from a furry friend or a loving family member. Oh no, it's the Petch oven. Congratulations, my friend. You've just woken up in Imperial Russia, circa the 18th century, where bread still speaks to the soul and frostbite creeps in like an unwanted cat. First, we must take a moment to admire the Pech oven, that marvel of wooden craftsmanship, standing proudly in its corner like a regal overseer of warmth. With a fiery belly that can double as a sauna, this behemoth of brick and clay stands ready to transform raw ingredients into masterpieces that would make even a modern chef weep with envy. Yes, this oven was the channel through which culinary magic flowed, a gateway to carbs, warmth, and perhaps a few charred memories along the way. Ah, the scent of freshly baked bread. Imagine that thick, wholesome aroma filling the small, dark room, so powerful it could knock a grumpy bear off its feet. Your stomach is now doing a choreography that resembles an enthusiastic dance-off, full of twists and turns, demanding you feed it like some kind of ravenous beast. Forget about appetizers, we're going straight for the main course carbs. Now, the Pech oven didn't just bake bread. No, my time-traveling friend. It was a multitasking genius. It did slow-cooked meals, roasted meats, and even held on to the remnants of last week's stew, creating a culinary time capsule that would make any archaeologist weep. But let's be honest, nothing compares to the glory of that golden brown bread glistening on its baking shelves, hot and crusty enough to win a beauty pageant. As the bread rises, the warmth spreads through the cabin like a gossiping neighbor, wrapping everyone in a cozy embrace. You can almost hear the bread whispering sweet nothings as it bakes. I'm destined for greatness. I'll be the star at dinner tonight. Meanwhile, you find yourself pondering a serious question: what snack would pair nicely with that era's version of Netflix? Now, let's talk about that nourishing scent wafting through the air, shall we? It curls around you like a long-lost friend, coaxing you into the kitchen. Boy, I hope nobody accidentally throws the inedible part of the root vegetable into the oven again, you ponder. Elevating your culinary game to its highest potential was no simple task, dear audience. But here's where things get comical. Imagine the confusion as a poor soul tries to decipher the nuances of timing in the Pech oven. What do you mean? Let it bake until it feels right. They check it after 5 minutes, only to find it's not quite bread yet, but definitely looks like a misshapen pancake. You just can't make this stuff up. Speaking of poorly shaped food, our brave friends in the cabin had plenty of ways to keep the fire roaring. After all, this oven demanded fuel, a tempest of firewood piled high, like a bad hair day in timber form. As you gather kindling in sub-zero temperatures, you realize that not only is the stove larger than your entire childhood bedroom, but it's also genuinely picky. Do I smell green wood? Oh heavens no. Sweet old birch only, please. To keep the Pech oven functioning like a well-oiled machine, you couldn't skimp on the wood. Resourcing logs was an art form, each chunk wisely selected and lovingly seasoned like an artisanal cheese. You'd think they were picking fruit at a fancy garden instead of firewood. Ah, yes, this one has just the right amount of sap. Will it work? Only the Pech oven knows. And let's not forget the occasional holiday when families decided to show off their culinary prowess. Mamas were elbow deep in dough as critters cautiously watched from the corners those who dared to dream about a rogue piece of bread. That's right, brothers and sisters, may the sacrificial loaves bestow upon you the strength to endure the winter, fueled by the risks of rogue furry attackers. So as the bread bakes, the family gathers around, faces glowing with the warmth emanating from the Pech oven. The comforting sounds of chatter fill the air, wrapped in the seductive aroma of baked goods that would make even the most stoic of pastas swoon. If this is what winter means in Imperial Russia, you might just want to huddle closer and pretend the outside world doesn't exist, at least until someone asks if they're up for sledding afterward, risking a frostbite that hyperventilating gingerbread man would envy. In the end, as you try to decide if you want to eat your bread warm or let it cool for the satisfaction of tearing off the crust, remember every loaf, every crumb tells a story. And in a world where winters are deadlier than your last breakup, a fresh loaf is a slice of happiness, a treasure that's fought for and honored, regardless of the snowy battlefield outside. So nestle in, dear dreamer, with thoughts of warmth and freshly baked bread floating in your mind. Perhaps it will lull you to sleep, while visions of fluffy loaves and dashing winters ensure that you have adventures even in your dreams. Chapter 11. The warmth of the Pech and the sweet dreams of a child. Hey guys, welcome back to another night of mildly interesting history. Tonight, prepare to snuggle deeper than a cat in a laundry basket, because we are stepping inside the snug realm of Russian log cabins in the 18th and 19th centuries, where the cold outside could give even the hardiest of souls double goosebumps. While the frost outside cranked it down to minus 50 degrees, inside, a remarkable marvel was happening. The Petch oven, and its magical ability to take away the chill that would make you reconsider every life choice up to this point. But first, before we dip our toes into this delightful bit of history, how many of you have ever wondered what it would be like to clamber into a winter wonderland, only to find out it's more like a winter? Oh no, my toes! Or maybe you've experienced that moment when your child, wrapped in layers like a modern-day burrito, snores like a tiny chainsaw next to you, while outside, the wind howls like it's auditioning for a horror film. You know, small matters like that. So, grab your warmest blanket, dim the lights, and get cozy. The truth is, in those log cabins, mankind faced some of the harshest winters, but don't worry. I'm about to make you chuckle into the void. Picture this, a little child, innocently snoozing on the smooth, warm surface of the Petch stove, a human marshmallow cushioned by layers of soft blankets, and possibly a stray cat or two. Congratulations, you've just woken up in a charming log cabin in Imperial Russia, where the outside world resembles a frozen wasteland, an expanse of doom encased in ice. The Petch is your new best friend. It sits silently, radiating warmth, like that one friend we all have who shows up to life's big events just to make everything feel a little less stressful. As the child cozies in, enveloped in blankets thicker than a woolly mammoth's coat, the Petch labors diligently in the background. Outside, frost clings to windows like an overzealous ex, while inside, the child dreams sweetly, lost in realms of flying bears and mop-wielding wizards. The warmth emanating from the Petch oven seems to wrap around them, lulling them into a peaceful slumber, one that would make Sleeping Beauty jealous. Now let's not forget, our dear child is blissfully unaware that outside, winter is like a relentless supervisor with no coffee in sight. It's brutal, cold, and just plain awful. Just imagine your skin prickling in the sub-zero air like 500 needles are poking at you, while you attempt to convince yourself that you will not, in fact, turn into a popsicle while heading outside to fetch a bucket of water. All this as the child snuggles deeper, wishing for nothing but the warmth that wraps around them like a giant hug from a teddy bear armed with a space heater. Did I mention the Petch is not just a furnace? No, my dear friend. It's an entire social experience. Families gathered around it, like moths to a flame, trying to keep their sanity during long winter nights filled with delicious smells and the murmur of gentle chatter. The child may dream about frolicking in a field of daisies, while somewhere across the room, Grandma is trying to convince anyone who will listen that she can bake a bigger loaf of bread than the neighbors. And let me tell you, it's a heated debate. None of that shruggable small talk. It's akin to a competitive sport. You can almost hear the grandparents reminiscing about the old days, as they throw all that love and warmth towards the Pech. Heaven forbid someone tries to cook cabbage before shooting a glance at fresh pastries, the kitchen might go up in flames faster than a clenched fist at a knitting competition. With the soothing sounds of family life contrasting the bitter cold outside, the Petch holds everyone captive under its spell, and the little child drifts off, their dreams becoming as warm and fluffy as the freshly baked bread that's gloriously wafting through the air. The Petch's spirited crackles feel like popcorn in a movie theater, but instead of reel-to-reel action, it's all about ancient family dramas and potato-picking mishaps. And then, reality kicks in. Who knew that tending a stove could also tend to family feuds? Why does Aunt Mabel always want to overshadow me with her borscht? You wonder, while the child unknowingly dreams of racing polar bears and holding council with rabbits. The comfort of family, both near and far, binds every moment, making you smile and shudder at the same time. As that child sleeps peacefully, wrapped in all the warmth imaginable against the monstrous winter just beyond the wooden walls, they might miss the occasional snowfall winding its way into those thick log corners, determined to show everyone who's boss. In that moment, however, none of it matters, for they've stumbled into a winter wonderland of domestic bliss, cozy and unbothered if only adult. Life was so simple. So, let the Petch oven work its magic while visions of winter adventures zip through the dreamland. The only real challenge lies in the fact that the outside world could care less about the warmth and togetherness, while the child, snug and warm, continue to dream, a radiant beacon of innocence amidst an icy empire that doesn't stand a chance against the love in that tiny log cabin. Chapter 12. Mama Katya's Stalwart Shuffle, the Art of Winter-Wise Mobility. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Delightfully Quirky History. Tonight, we dive into something more precarious than your least favorite yoga pose, walking in the icy wilderness of Imperial Russia. Imagine, if you will, a winter that could freeze the very thoughts in your head as you venture out. Now, before we venture too deep into the frostbitten rabbit hole, I must ask, have you ever tried moving as if you were an awkwardly built robot, gingerly avoiding any suspiciously slippery patches on the floor? Or perhaps you faced the existential dread of getting out of a warm bed only to confront the icy tiles that could easily double as a skating rink. What if I told you the stakes were much, much higher in a Russian log cabin where a simple fall could lead to contemplation of one's life choices, or worse, a trip to doctorless oblivion? So, grab a cozy blanket, imagine you're bundled up, like a charismatic burrito, and let's step gingerly into the tale of Mama Katya. Picture the scene. A rustic log cabin stands resolutely, defying the minus 50 degrees chills outside. Inside, the air is thick with warmth, thanks to the pet oven. But there's one challenge no amount of warmth can solve: making it from one end of the room to the other without ending up in a heap on the floor. As you shuffle through this era, you encounter Mama Katya, the grandmother extraordinaire. She relies on her graceful yet painstaking movements like a seasoned dancer performing on an ice rink, just less of the grace and more of the "I really should have worn better shoes." You see, Mama Katya grips a main beam for dear life. As she crosses the room, it's like a live-action game of Twister, but the only prize is simply not crashing into the decorative wooden chicken that everyone swears serves as a meaningful heirloom. Now, visualize Katya with stern-faced determination, her woolen shawl wrapped tightly, her fingers curled around the beam as if it were a lifeline thrown into the stormy seas of her own living room. The floor beneath her is a battleground. It turns out that decades of spilled soup and unintentional wildlife visitors contribute to a rather slick interior. Each step must be calculated, as though she were playing chess against a particularly aggressive grandmaster whose next move might lead to an icy mishap. It's strategic genius mixed with the grand theatricality of a comedy act that would leave anyone gasping for air, or at least for a warm drink. But let's not forget that our heroine doesn't lack motivation. She is propelled not just by the desire to cross the room, but by the exhilarating, frightening prospect of finding something delightful, maybe a slightly overcooked potato lingering just outside the peck's embrace, or worse yet, a cat obliviously lounging in her path, blissfully unaware of the icy danger looming over her well-planned steps. In this wooden sanctuary, Mama Katya becomes a symbol of resilience, balancing precariously between the warmth of the petch and the icy grip of the winter world outside. It's the age-old struggle of every grandmother since the dawn of time: how to harness the powers of warmth while avoiding the perils of a tumble that could land her in a pile of mushy potatoes, or worse, face the wrath of an overwhelmingly concerned family gathering, giving suggestions about elder care and daily exercise. Now, as she inches along, you might chuckle at the thought that this is what life has come to: careful maneuvers echoing back to the days of medieval knights who dodged arrows while trying to sip tea. Mama Katya, however, knows deep down she is not just practicing self-preservation. She's doing a grand performance, each step worthy of applause. Nothing says, "Watch me conquer winter," quite like a dramatic pirouette around the sleeping family dog who could care less about her wintertime antics. Of course, as you observe this masterful waltz, you can't help but wonder what kind of emergency plan is in place for winter fall incidents, should they occur. Do they have a slogan, you muse? If you fall, just roll over and pretend you were doing a very advanced yoga pose. Who knows? It's a serious situation that calls for laughter at the absurdity of life's tricky turning points. And just when you think things couldn't get more amusing, the child from the previous chapter, blissfully unaware of Mama Katya's graceful ballet, can't help but stir. Unbeknownst to anyone, they are dreaming of epic ice battles where snowflakes become tiny knights and Mama Katya is their fearless commander, carving through the icy landscape with all the finesse of a figure skating champion. With dreams of flamboyant moves and winning ice battles, the next challenge is laid out: navigating winter obstacles without losing one's dignity or one's holiday spirit. So, here we find ourselves, Mama Katia, the fearless matriarch on a gastronomical expedition through her icy realm, up against chaos in the kitchen and the inevitable risk of landing like an unwilling snowball. Outside, the winds howl, but inside, amidst the cacophony of hibernating cats and the vigilant pech, Mama Katia remains the unsung hero of winter survival. All this excitement simply to secure a room temperature potato. Who said family gatherings aren't drenched in exhilarating peril and unpredictable moments that keep the chill of winter at bay? In this log cabin nestled within Imperial Russia, you are not merely a spectator but an active part of this tale of laborious yet humorous winter navigation. Now, as the patch continues to work its magic, who says history can't be full of warmth, love, and good laughs amidst the frostbitten wilderness? Chapter 13. The Glazy Gaze of Winter's Hunger. Hey guys, welcome back to another mind-bending tale from the frosty annals of history, where the only thing colder than the winter winds is the heart of a toothless wolf eyeing your rations. Tonight, we explore the depths of winter survival, where the struggle to stay warm rivals the epic sagas of ancient warriors, or your last attempt at dieter's choice. More kale, less pie. Now, dim the lights and snuggle into your blankets, because what's coming is chillier than the unflinching gaze of your high school gym teacher around crunch time. If you find yourself yearning for things that seem out of reach, like edible food in a predominantly snow-covered landscape, you're in good company. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and throw a comment our way, only if, of course, you find this hysterically absurd, like trying to sell ice cubes to a penguin as you get cozy. Ponder this. What would it be like to wake up in an unforgiving landscape where every meal is a battle, and frostbite is less of a concern than, say, making sure you don't eat the last piece of stale bread because your uncle once suggested it could keep for a century? How did regular folk manage the crushing chill of winter without super cotton-heated pajamas? Were they constantly on a hunt for hot soup, like lovable yet misguided Campbell's enthusiasts? Could they truly make the most of their situation? Or was every winter simply a spectacular failed audition for exaggerated survival shows, featuring hostile, snow-covered wilderness and occasional animal drama? Congratulations, you've just woken up in the 18th century in a quaint little log cabin nestled in the heart of Imperial Russia. The outside world looks like an endless expanse of white, and inside, your surroundings aren't much warmer. You rise, shivering slightly, and barely manage to peel your face off the cold wooden floor, where it has bravely stuck through the night. The layers of wool and fur clinging to your body feel more like a woolen straitjacket than anything cozy. All around you, people are wide-eyed, and not just from wonderment, no. It's that most ancient of horrors, hunger. Swoosh! A gust of icy air slips through the cracks in the walls, teasing at your ambition to contemplate breakfast. The dark and dreary surroundings only amplify the relentless echo of a child's rumbling stomach. Picture this little one, eyes wide and glimmering, filled not with festive spark but with the persistent gnawing hunger of the season. It's the kind of hunger that could turn even the most benevolent grandma into a two-headed dragon if she doesn't find a bite to eat. You're left to wonder why hunger pangs feel like a combination of a growling grizzly bear and an overly dramatic soap opera villain nursing a grudge against meal schedules. Now imagine the air filled with the smell of wood smoke mingling with something slightly more sinister, the underlying scent of potatoes cascading into the realm of the unknown. Is that overcooked? Did Grandma Katya accidentally send one potato plummeting into the petch, her beloved oven? The suspense of it all rivals the greatest thrillers of your day. Outside, frost clings miserably to the branches of birch trees like an overzealous stylist lost in a snowstorm. You can almost hear them sigh beneath their burden, anticipating the chaos of spring. Meanwhile, your concern has shifted back to family anxieties about getting through winter without resorting to a feast of frozen turnips. Is that truly a way to sustain life? You ponder, staring deeply into the curious child's eyes, deciding between gnawing relentlessly on a piece of stale bread or devising a plan more sinister, like surreptitiously convincing younger siblings that snowflakes are edible must weigh heavily on their tiny shoulders. Every sneeze, every scratch of frost on their nose signals a potential betrayal to the family pantry. Now, as barren as the tundra outside, let's discuss the reality of meals, if we must. Imagine bubbling pots not filled with hearty stews, but rather the remnants of last week's festive leftovers, conveniently disguised in the appearance of collective despair and a side of undercooked emotions. Each bite might as well come with a sworn oath. I promise on this weather-beaten potato I will appreciate whatever this is, even if I have to lie down and tell the world is the best thing I've tasted, despite it resembling something your herd might have regrettably produced. What could rival such a culinary adventure, you might wonder? A thrilling adventure movie? A historical documentary? No, my friend. Today's episode chronicles epic battles against hunger, complete with snowflakes twinkling like confetti of despair against yet another potato-based dinner. Beyond the wind's ceaseless whispers, you catch snippets of laughter and snippets of relatives arguing over the best methodology for actually chewing a potato that's prepared in what can only be described as slightly softer than granite. Ah yes, another day in the log cabin where sneezes can cause avalanches of opinions. And love is equated to warmth from shared body heat. And gentlemanly behavior ensures you never accepting the last cookie, even if you're one sneeze away from starvation. As the night drags on, the little one's eyes flicker, and dreams of vast feasts begin to swirl, encompassing potato mountains and lakes of frothy soup. Life in the log cabin, while comical and dire, is a grand everyday performance of survival, where the show must go on, even as hunger gnaws persistently at your frame. Indeed, there's a certain humor in overcooked potatoes and children's imaginations making the most out of frigid circumstances. After all, what better way to fend off winter blues than with a heartwarming chuckle, a sprinkle of absurdity, and a gastronomical adventure where humor stands. Resiliently a soldier in the battleground of turning hunger into a giggle. As our tale here in Imperial Russia unfolds, it becomes clear that survival was never about mere rations, but the laughter that filled the corners of their wooden sanctuaries. It's here, dear listener, where it's not just the log cabin and the potatoes that endure, they become the life raft of mirthful existence amidst the onslaught of winter. And let's be honest, that's a wholly relatable situation, wouldn't you say? Chapter 14, The Petch and the Art of Cozy Thermodynamics. So as we continue our frigid adventure through history, let's talk about one of the great unsung heroes of winter, the Petch. No, it's not an unfortunate spelling error for peach. We're delving into the world of traditional Russian masonry and the wood stove alchemy that transformed drafty log cabins into havens of warmth. Was it magic? Was it science? We may never know, but we'll certainly make it sound way more dramatic than it actually was. The Petch, a heavy smoke-stained damper, is being closed with the grace of an overworked bear slamming shut a picnic basket full of jam. This isn't just any old chimney damper. It's a multi-tone clay and brick masterpiece, performing the intricate dance of thermal mass, much like the parental figure at a family gathering, trying to moderate Thanksgiving dinner conversations without losing their cool. As you watch, the Petch seals the heat inside, so much so that if it were to complain, it would have entitled itself to more happy hours than a college student cramming for finals. Once it seals up tight, the Petch begins its long job of warming the house for the next 24 hours. Now, when we think about heat retention, we might envision a high-tech space-age astronaut with a fancy thermal suit. But here, my dear time traveler, the Russians were working their own brand of magic. As you settle into your cluttered cabin, imagine the exquisite smell of wood smoke permeating the air while you bask in the warm embrace of clay, reminiscent of a friendly hug from a weathered but cuddly bear. Now, let's pause for a moment and picture the sensation, the walls of your home, made from logs gathered with as much precision as if you were building a life-sized Jenga tower. Each log is artfully stacked, keenly aware of its duty to ward off both snowstorms and potential home invasions by overly curious bears. The skill of the builders would make you question why you ever thought IKEA furniture was difficult to assemble. Can you hear it? The soft crackling of front row seats warming by the Petch fireside. The walls exhale a sigh of contentment, resonating like an old man reminiscing about his glory days while cheerfully holding a mug of beet kvass. Ah, the kvass, a fermented beverage, so ordinary, yet so extraordinarily enigmatic that it could inspire a 5-part miniseries. Amid the cozy atmosphere, your trusty companions, the family, close friends, maybe an overly nosy rooster, each huddle around the Petch, perhaps engaging in loud discussions over who actually deserves the last slice of something. Spoiler alert, Nobody's going to get it. As you huddle close, with the warmth seeping into your bones, imagine the frantic operational concerns surrounding what might actually go into the petch itself. Would Grandma Lyudmila throw unspeakable leftovers from 2 weeks prior into the heart of this thermal beast? Talk about a culinary gamble. The petch didn't merely heat the home. It became a mystical portal for cooking, baking, and possibly the hosting of strange family debates about the merits of whatever questionable dish just emerged. Feel the anticipation as the food cooks, smelling as enticing as a spring festival despite the oppressive frost outside. But should the food be a bit too adventurous, expect an uproar akin to a family reunion gone awry. Kids speculate if Grandma Lyudmila has accidentally turned roasted potatoes into modern art, while the elderly sambuca-sipping uncle tries to convince everyone this chaos is a form of expression. Let's not forget about airflow, a crucial element in this warm haven. Fresh air? Forget it. The cracks in the log cabin might as well have been portal doors to Narnia on a night of whipping winds. As you reminisce about your health seminar on indoor air quality, a chill reminds you that the idea was good, but good luck putting that into practice. Every gust would send you spiraling into debates that could rival the greatest soap operas. Who forgot to stuff moss into the cracks this time? Now, imagine gently drawing in the aroma wafting from the pech, mingling with the smells of your neighbor's bread, baking like an affectionate dance partner over the frosty floorboards. The petch was the quarterback of your domestic football team, keeping spirits high and warmth even higher while squabbles raged around the dinner table like a game of bingo gone wrong. However, lurking beneath the surface of this warmth lies the specter of reality. With temperatures dipping down to minus 50 degrees Celsius outside, the hunt for uniform happiness during such frigid months often devolved into a frosty tugo-form, especially when the last potato was claimed like treasure on a pirate ship. You can practically feel the tension rising as eager hands swipe at mashed potatoes like they were vintage vinyl records. Good luck keeping your cabin atmosphere civil. As the hours melt away, like snow under the relentless sun, the petch works tirelessly, creating perhaps not the epitome of culinary excellence, but a delightful assurance that everyone is a little too full to argue over property lines or which child has the best drawing skills. So, snug in your layers of wool and pondering your next meal as a distance memory, remember, each crumb of bread consumed near the petch is a victory, a very delicious victory that shines even brighter in perpetuity than your family's potato-peeling prowess. Because, in this life, my friend, the humor of survival triumphs over the chill of circumstance, turning winter's freeze into delightful warmth. Chapter 15. The Great Stove Showdown. Petch versus modern furnaces. So let's cozy up by the fire figuratively. Since we're talking about a time when actual fires were the only option and outdoor freezing was just part of the morning ritual. If your latest Tinder date was less of a sizzle and more of a fizzle, you will feel a kindred spirit with the Russians of the 18th and 19th centuries who faced an even chillier partner, the winter of Imperial Russia. Ah, yes, the frostbitten, snow-covered landscape where coats had more layers than an onion, and you had a better chance of finding a bear that could cook your dinner than a furnace that wouldn't give you frostbite. Let's make our way indoors and take a good look at the main character in our winter tale, the petch. This magnificent clay stove embodied thermal mass, better than your average bear hibernating in a cozy cave. And when I say thermal mass, what I really mean is that this bad boy could hold on to heat longer than your Aunt Olga holds on to grudges, reminding everyone of that one Thanksgiving incident every single year. As it looms in the corner, the petch stands like a regal giant, capable of turning cold air into balmy bliss, while modern furnaces floundered about with more venting tubes than an octopus wearing a tailcoat. Picture it. Across this frozen expanse, a modern furnace, the verbose gadget, with a blinking red light and a venting system making it eerily resemble something straight from a sci-fi horror flick, flails dramatically in comparison. Meanwhile, the petch is like that simple, wise grandparent who might not have the newest gadgets, but has those secret family recipes locked away. Thermal what? You might wonder, as your furnace screeches like it's auditioning for a horror movie. Meanwhile, the pech, with its heavy clay and bricks, lounges smugly, while radiating the kind of warmth that could unthaw even the most frosty of relationships. Imagine the sensation. Backing up in your log cabin feels almost like finding your long-lost soft blanket, except this blanket is a multi-ton stove that's been perfecting the art of keeping you warm for centuries. The heat radiates through the thick clay walls, while the modern appliance inflates the HVAC invoice with all the grace of an elephant in a tutu trying to pirouette. It's like that one person who insists on ordering an artisanal kale salad when you've already planned for a meat feast. Necessary, but decidedly cumbersome. Now, you might ask, what about convenience? Ah, my friend, there's the rub. For those cozy seekers huddled near the petch, the stove doesn't require an advanced degree in home appliance engineering to operate. Just a bit of wood, a few strategically placed logs, and voila, you're entering a sauna of warmth. In contrast, modern furnaces act like they're performing brain surgery. Turn the dial 4 clicks to the left, tap the reset button, disable the Wi-Fi connectivity, and don't forget to sprinkle lavender seeds on Tuesday. It's the only way to keep the thermostat happy. Meanwhile, your PEC's instructions could fit on the back of a post-it note. Burn wood, stay warm, enjoy. And don't even get me started on maintenance. The Petch was low maintenance in a let's not overthink this kind of way. Occasionally, someone would sweep out the ashes with the same enthusiasm of someone cleaning out the cat litter box. Nobody really enjoyed it, but it was a necessary evil. Meanwhile, the furnace was as fussy as a toddler at nap time. Warning, filter needs changing. It beeped nonchalantly, lulling you into a false sense of security while secretly racking up repair bills like a teenage boy collects air fresheners in his car. Good luck trying to fix it when it goes on the fritz at midnight on a Sunday when everything's closed and your wool socks are looking less than fashionable. Picture yourself sitting around the pesh as dinner gets underway. Stews simmering, potatoes softening in the embrace of all that cozy warmth. A serene setting where the hardest question is whether Stepan's syrupy kvass is outshining Masha's beet lozenges. But wait, modern kitchens often come equipped with appliances that would make even the most patient home cook pull their hair out. Why isn't the oven preheating fast enough? And what is this smart setting for? Yeah, a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an absurdly frazzled robotic kitchen assistant. Meanwhile, people back in the imperial era were likely sharing toasts of friendship while keeping their feet warm on the PEC's inviting surface. It's as if they knew life was far too chaotic to stress about who's up next on the washing machine showdown. Picture it. Victorian dramas played out not with passive-aggressive emails, but with laughter, warmth, and perhaps the melt-in-your-mouth reminder that, yes, nobody knows who left the wooden spoon in the pot. And, frankly, who wants to know? In this winter wonderland, the pitch holds its own against modernity's relentless march. The temperature outside may dip low enough to freeze your breath, but inside, you're wrapped in layers and warmth that modern life would tire itself trying to replicate. Thank you, dear Petch, for reminding us that sometimes a bit of clay, some wood, and a sprinkle of humor are all you need to make winter absolutely delightful, even if everything outside is just one catchy frostbite away from disaster. Chapter 16, The Cozy Conclave of the Pech. So let's slip onto the warm embrace of the Pech, shall we? Picture a group of small children huddling near its side, drawn in by the soft, radiant heat like moths to a flame, if moths cared more about staying warm than flying into annoying lights. Their little faces, pink and relaxed, low in the Pech's embrace, resembling freshly boiled borscht beneath a warm sun, not too hot, just perfect. Ah, this scene is one of pure whimsy amidst the icy breath of winter outside, where the wind howls like a howler monkey trying to out-yell its friends. You can hear the crunch of frost beneath their tiny boots, but inside, bliss. The crackling of the wood in the pech is the real symphony, a much finer tune than your neighbor's cat trying to narrate an opera every morning. Now, do allow me to ask, isn't it just delightful how the hourglass nature of childhood always seems to include precariously positioned warmth? You know those fleeting moments of sunbeams that seem to dart away at the most inconvenient times, like the local goats when it's time for milking. How many of us have employed this strategy, pretending the couch is a life raft as we avoid real-life obligations? These children have mastered it in a cabin, surrounded by walls thick enough to question if they're secretly part of a cliffside fortress. As they huddle together, elbows poking, knees jabbing, these wee ones learn the art of human insulation, much like two overly enthusiastic cats trying to snuggle in a laundry basket. They clamber closer like sardines in a can, trying to capture every last ounce of that glorious radiant heat, only to realize that a beach day at Lake Baikal is a distant fantasy as the frost nips at their noses. This comforting chaos is a far cry from modern childhood, no iPads or video games, just good old-fashioned camaraderie to pass the time. You might hear them chatter about the latest gossip in their miniature kingdom. Did you see what Ivan tried to smuggle in from the shed? A potato. And no one knows how he thought that would fly. Of course, you'd need to add theatrics. Done, done, done. And while they play, you can almost see the steam wafting from the petch, swirling into the air like a dance-off between soft cotton candy and motherly love. The children laugh and tease one another, dodging the occasional reprimand from their caretakers, wrapped in layers of wool that absolutely smells of sheep and questionable life choices. Who knew that childhood humor could be as timeless as a pair of socks lost to the ether? But as the frost seeps in through the walls, our young friends must face the reality that comes with living next to the guardian of warmth, the petch. Have you ever tried to get a group of energetic kids to settle down around a cozy fire? It's like trying to herd cats. Or, in this case, like trying to wrangle a batch of plump dumplings in a boiling pot, perilously hot and absurdly unpredictable. Don't scoot too close to the stove. You'll end up as the dinner's warm-up act. And warming up, oddly enough, was hardly ever the issue. It was usually keeping them from either getting way too close and turning into human saunas, or heaven forbid, deciding that the fire's soft glow was a perfect spot for a game of who can light the most crazy objects. We've all seen that horror movie, haven't we? As the pech radiates its gleaming warmth, the outside chill is the stuff of nightmares. 50 below? Try holding that thought while your toes confront frostbite during your mad dash to relieve yourself behind a bush, a less than enviable retreat that even the neighbor's cow would probably judge. This is winter in Imperial Russia, after all, where jacket layers are a veritable end-of-life wrestling match, and frostbite was merely an unexpected guest arriving uninvited. But back inside, in this sanctuary of warmth, the air is filled with the scent of bubbling stews, a symphony of potatoes, cabbage, and mysterious root vegetables dancing together like a winter festival. The children take turns stealing glances at the cooking pot, a non-verbal agreement that whoever can endure the petch's radiant warmth the longest deserves a slightly soggy dollop of that stew. Later on, they dive back into their antics, filling the small lodge with the echoes of joy and laughter. Stepan's face when he realized he was sitting on a bewitched potato. They squeal, picturing the mystical spud rebelling against its fate in the kitchen. You can almost see the sparks flying, probably a result of too much childhood energy coupled with a dash of high-stakes dangling potato. Oh, the irony. Laughter and warmth prevail in a world where winter reigns supreme. Here, an epic battle rages not only against the frostbiting winds, but also against the raucous, fervent spirit of youth. Cozy and chaotic, the petch stands as both the heart and warm hug of the log cabin, proving once again that, in the heart of winter, it is connection, warmth, and a bit of childlike charm that conquer the most bitter of cold. And who would have thought that childhood shenanigans could be so timelessly entertaining? Or that frosty winters would stir up giggles of camaraderie rather than gloomy despair? In this cozy conclave of the petch, no one seems to mind that the world outside is flirting dangerously close to freezing over, because inside, heated mischief reigns supreme. This is where our story pauses, for a heartbeat or two. Isn't it remarkable how warmth swaddles us, wraps us tightly like a well-loved blanket? So secure, so familiar. It's within that warmth where even the unlikeliest of legends are told, and potato mishaps become heroic tales, forever tinged with laughter. Chapter 17, The Jewel of the Izba. Hey guys, welcome back to another soothing adventure through history. Tonight, we're diving deep into a world colder than your last questionable dating experience, Imperial Russia during the 1700s and 1800s. Imagine yourself huddled in a log cabin, where even the walls seem to shiver at the thought of stepping outside into the icy torment of minus 50-degree winters. Before we get all comfy cozy, can you picture this? Imagine wondering if it's possible to knit yourself a coat thick enough to survive a frostbite duel. Or how about this? If potatoes were a form of currency, would you be hoarding them like they're gold? And while we're at it, how many layers of wool could one reasonably wear without transforming into a walking woolly mammoth? If that tickles your funny bone, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment only if you enjoy this history giggle ride, of course. Now, go ahead and dim those lights as we float into the beds of the past, Wrap yourself up like a Russian babushka and imagine the warmth around you. Even if it's as chilly outside as that one aunt that never lets you forget about the time you wore mismatched socks to dinner. Congratulations. You've just woken up in the 1700s, specifically in an Izba, one of those charming log cabins where warmth is as precious as that elusive feeling of having just one weekend free on your calendar. It's dark, it's cold, and there's a sky outside so full of stars it might make you wonder if you're actually stuck in a very frosty space show. Now, let's talk about the pièce de résistance of these log cabins, the red glass window. And not just any window, this is a corner window, the crown jewel of the Izba. Imagine it, a single precious pane of rubier glass, glittering like a celebrity in a sea of ordinary folks. It's enough to make even a sock puppet jealous. Back in the day, this little slice of luxury was rare and so costly. You'd think it was, made from the tears of the bubonic plague. Why, you ask? Well, this solitary window said more about you than 1,000 selfies on social media. It's a status symbol, a beacon of hope, and a testament to the family's devotion to standing out in the gloom of winter. And let me tell you, blending in was about as desirable as being stuck in a car with a loud karaoke enthusiast. As you gaze through this splendid red portal, you'd note how it beams just enough light to make the snowflakes outside blush. Snow is not just falling, it's competing for the title of most dramatic winter scene. Just picture it. Tiny ice particles weaving their way down like ballerinas, performing a frosty ballet as graceful as a cat, attempting parkour on a fresh layer of ice. This window was like the first sip of tea on a bone-chilling day. It brought solace in the midst of harsh winters and gave families something to rally around. Think about it. Everyone squeezed into the Izba, cozy together, like mismatched socks in a dryer. And as they gathered, the radiant glow from that window became a conversation starter. Look, Petrovich, our neighbor has a fancy red window. Or perhaps, doesn't that red glass look like the time I accidentally spilled beetroot on my favorite petticoat? And then there was that discussion, the polite nodding, the flaring of nostrils. Who could possibly afford such finery? Peasants contemplated how they could ever justify their next potato purchase, and nobles sneered, speculating that the cost of warmth had indeed become a new metric system of prestige alongside measurable wealth in turnips. Can you imagine the achievements? Darling, I've managed to score a treasure, a red corner window, and perhaps this calls for a celebratory feast of lukewarm borscht. Nothing says true luxury like a slim chance of getting food poisoning, right? But this red glass wasn't just for status. It was also a symbol of hope. Inside, the family would gather around the glowing warmth of the pesh, filling their bellies with stews, while the red window stood proudly, solid against the frosty winds, a silent guardian, turning deep blues and blacks of winter into vibrant hues, celebrating life. It's almost poetic, really unlike the poetry side of your high school curriculum. Families realized that while outside, the frost's grip was relentless, already claiming their favorite sandals as honorary ice skates. Inside, warmth and determination spun a tapestry of unity. Like overcooked pasta, they clung together, twisting and turning to share a single bowl of soup, the ultimate family bonding experience wrapped in layers of wool. So there you have it, the window of red glass that brought laughter, camaraderie, and rich conversations while the world outside tried its best to make everyone else an unwitting sacrifice to the winter gods. You can't make this stuff up. In a world so cold you could use a potato as an ice pick, families figured out how to thrive, all thanks to a bit of visible luxury that brought them together, like mismatched socks on a laundry line, flapping in the winter wind, defying the chill. Now snuggle deeper into your blankets and dream away. But remember, sometimes it's not just about surviving the cold. It's about thriving while making sure the red glass remains the life of the party. Chapter 18. The Cozy Conundrum of Winter. As you gaze through that singularly splendid red window, the external landscape reveals itself. A desolate stretch of snow and ice that could put even the most loyal snowman to shame. With a sight so stark, it's as if an artist took their palette and accidentally spilled every shade of white onto the canvas. You can't help but chuckle at the absurdity. Outside, the elements are intent on staging a dramatic freeze-off that would make an igloo look like a five-star resort. But inside? Dear listener, inside the Izba, the warmth beckons like the scent of fresh baked bread, promising not to be your last meal before a cheeky encounter with frostbite. Picture it. the air thick with the aroma of wood smoke, mingling with the stew simmering away. Perhaps it's a little bit too flavorful, you think, as you make a mental note to avoid second helpings. Still, nothing says authentic Russian cuisine like a meal that may or may not have seen every last turnip from the last harvest. As your eyes set upon the trim of that fantastical corner window, the enchanting ruby brilliance encapsulates the very essence of the Izba, defying the gloom like a well-placed disco ball at a wake. You've got your layers of furs and wool wrapped around you, and yes, the layers are beginning to resemble a lumpy, overly enthusiastic caterpillar. And let's not forget about the company. Other families are huddled together, tossing jokes around while dressed in enough layers to qualify for an impromptu snowball fight. Now, during these frosty months, warmth is more than just comfort. It's essentially the social currency of the day. Inside the Izba, everyone would gather like freshly baked pies just out of the oven, rising and crusting together, hoping the cold doesn't invade their cozy gathering. The pech, or the stove, that doubles as a bed, bubbled and popped away in the corner, bringing heat and the occasional billow of smoke, which, may I add, does wonders for adding character to your lungs if you're not careful. It's a resplendent scene, friends and family sharing tales of daring snowball fights, fast ghost stories so chilling that the draft doesn't even need to come in through the wall cracks. Might you wonder what the day-to-day looks like on such a chilly canvas? Let's paint you a picture. Imagine waking up with the sun, bright and comically optimistic as it streams through your lovely red shard of a window while you're still cozily slumped under the layers of wool. Even getting out of bed feels like running a marathon through a snowstorm. You're marveling at the stubborn will that keeps you tethered to your sheets, like a particularly lazy bear who forgot it's supposed to hibernate. When you finally make those first few movements, it's a theatrical performance. No one can say you don't have flair, especially as you attempt to maneuver inside your cocoon like a tire. Ever tried washing your face in a bowl of icy water? You'd think you're auditioning for an extreme sports reality show, the not-so-fun games. Frozen Face Edition. But fret not. One visit to the patch, and you'd feel like a human torch. A rather warm human, all those woolen layers notwithstanding. However, let's face it, getting to that stove often involves a fair bit of acrobatics. As you waddle towards it, slipping on a wayward potato or maybe an old turnip that has declared war on your feet, you contemplate if you should have also purchased insurance for your noggin. Surely stepping on frost-covered patches is equivalent to trying to juggle while riding a unicycle on a tightrope above fire-breathing dragons. Once you've safely navigated the obstacle course of the typical Izba morning, breakfast calls. More accurately, you sit down to a feast that would make a modern-day brunch enthusiast reevaluate their avocado toast. You're faced with a steaming bowl of thick porridge, along with shards of bread that look as if they've seen better days. The richness makes you feel alive enough to momentarily wonder if you'll have to chew through what could cause quite the dental nightmare. Time to think calculatingly, plan breakfast portions wisely, or risk regretting it while clutching your belly. Because nothing screams cushion against winter's fury like pushing your stomach to the limits of starch. As days fade into chilly evenings, the family gathers around, fueled not just by the warmth of the fire, but also by laughter and jubilant stories. Imagine the scene. The kids bouncing about, enacting epic claims of heroism through giant snow forts, while parents share tales of past winters, trying to outdo each other's frostbite survival stories. You think your toes froze? Please. I once pretended to be a panda during a blizzard. Push it harder than that, my friend. And here comes a kicker. On a midnight blizzard, you'll realize the most remarkable thing of all, the warmth that knits these families together is more invigorating than any thick winter coat. It's the shared smiles, the deep breaths of warmth against piercing cold, the resilience of human connection woven between layers of wool and bickering. So, while the Arctic tundra outside does its best to claim souls left and right, inside the Izba, laughter reigns supreme, alongside a defeatist turnip or two plotting to take over the breakfast table. Warmth here isn't just about physics. It's about family's wicked sense of humor. Humor so rich, it could keep winter at bay. Who knew frozen potatoes could inspire such a frenzy of culinary creativity? Now, let the images of this quaint life envelop you like a toasty blanket, and may you dream not just of surviving a winter, but maybe even dazzling your neighbors with an honorary red window of your own, the finest glass in all the land, or at least the shiniest glitter you can muster. Chapter 19, the Izba, Gathering, Warmth, Chaos, and the Eternal Quest for Comfort. Ah, let's delve deeper into the snug wonderland of the Izba. Imagine an intimate, cozy room, lined with fragrant wooden beams that seem to be in a constant contest over who can hold the most memories, and perhaps a few charred edges from one too many cooking mishaps. In this wondrous cocoon of chaos, where sips of steaming kvass buoy spirits and bread rolls abound as if they're the royal subjects of their own kingdom, you find yourself bemused and utterly encharmed. You might wonder how to describe the atmosphere. It's as warm and chaotic as a group of toddlers unleashed in a candy store. You're half in awe and half terrified at the potential for utter destruction. The air feels thick like a grandma's hug after she's just spilled flour all over herself. You might even catch a whiff of comically burnt bread, stubbornly circling in the air like an uninvited ghost at a dinner party. Around the massive clay stove, the pech, the centerpiece of this household serenity, lives its glory. Its cracked exterior practically sings tales of resilience like a battle-scarred war hero who still has a sense of humor. The stove doesn't just provide warmth. It offers a toasty bed, a steaming cooktop, and perhaps a personality or two, depending on how many long-lost relatives are crowded about. As you scan the room, your eyes may dart from jovial faces enveloped in laughter to that one character, silently plotting to harvest turnips for the recipe nobody asked for. Meanwhile, there are children, vagabonds of joy, scampering and bouncing about in a climate controlled by nothing but the charisma of the Pech and that uniquely Russian brand of chaos. Why do the kids seem to possess boundless energy despite the freezing temperatures outside? The answer: sugar, relentless spirit, and a secret power that surfaces only in Izba gatherings. Let's pause for a moment. Imagine a conversation happening between generations, grandparents wearing expressions as thick as the furs they donned, recanting tales of glories won during wind-whipping blizzards, while pretending to ignore smears of mashed potatoes adorning the corners of their grandchildren's mouths. The artistry of storytelling in the Izba could put any modern-day Netflix series to shame. Back in my day, one elder might proclaim, "Brr, it was so cold, I once found my breath frozen mid-sentence. You kids don't know what real cold is. Why? We had to sleep next to the Pech, just to stave off becoming human popsicles." The kids valiantly roll their eyes as they ponder how exactly one becomes a popsicle, later concluding it likely involves some wayward shenanigans. With a sigh of contentment, you glance toward the pot of stew bubbling with more enthusiasm than an amateur magician revealing their latest trick. Is it turnip or potato? Is it the culinary masterpiece they promised, or that slightly suspicious mix resulting from a keen game of what can we throw in the pot? Regardless, you inch closer, drawn by the aroma like moths to a flame, or, in this case, like hungover office workers to the first coffee of the day. The room is alive with movement. Someone's cranking the tunes of an old balalaika, and others appear to be engaging in a highly spirited game of who's the better breader, a competition which sees flour thrown about like confetti in a celebration. And if you're not careful, you may become the unintentional star of the Flour Monster Generation show. Let's take a brief adventure into the modern realm for a second, shall we? Picture this. You've arrived home after a long day, craving cozy comfort food that's a blend of nostalgic memories and decidedly questionable ingredients. When you finally settle down, the TV's flickering plays on loop. Your family, on the other hand, is not hearing any of it. Soup is clanking, laughter is booming, and before you know it, the food fight acts as the incentive for everyone to feel thoroughly content, if not a bit sticky. Sound familiar? Just as the bread is served up, someone spills an entire bowl of stew in an act of wild hand gesticulation, a little accident turning into a joyous fetch that armless turnip. Game. Laughter erupts, louder than the howling winds outside. The contrast makes the scene even sweeter. The Pech stands unmoved, chronicling yet another memory in its layered hodgepodge of family gatherings. As the evening meanders on, your new home for the night awakens to life. The warmth envelopes you with the promise of stories as rich as the bread served, and friendships as cozy as the furs lining your shoulders. The hours drift lazily. One story melts into another, until you find yourself giggling over the inevitable comical mishaps wrought from winter chaos. Each chuckle layered with warmth, reminding you of the resilience that connects you personally to these devoted pioneers against their frosty fate. In the end, as the shadows lengthen and the air grows thicker, with the scent of something mystifying. Was it burnt bread or grandma's secret recipe? You realize amidst it all, warmth is not merely a physical sensation. It's a shared gathering, an activity wrapped in tradition, and a pile of unrepentant humor decorating the grayest of winters. And with that thought, perhaps you could even find a turniporul viatepech. Stir the stories around you, and bless your new and utterly absurd life in the Izba. Who knew surviving winter could feel so gloriously chaotic? Chapter 20. The Dance of Daily Survival. Kneading dough in the face of icy death. Now let's roll up our sleeves, because it's time to get down to the nitty-gritty of life in Imperial Russia, when winter slapped down like a grumpy landlord demanding rent. Just picture yourself, snugly nestled in your Izba, where the aromatic air hints at yeast and flour as you knead dough for the daily bread, though it sometimes feels like wrestling a bear just to prove a point. Ever heard a bear groan? It's pretty much the same sound a stubborn lump of dough makes when you're trying to convince it to become something more than an oversized doorstop. As you pit your will against that dough, sweat beading on your brow like tiny, frozen peas. The ambience drips with a melody composed of the crackling fire, the ambient whine of the wind outside, and the distant yet relentless serenade of your neighbor's sheep. It's an orchestra of chaos, one that would surely make even Mozart scratch his head and contemplate a safer career. What's that? You're thirsting for the delicate dance of human ingenuity amidst the elements? Well, allow me to charm you with a scene that captures the thrill of survival, the daily ritual of keeping the fire alive. Picture this. You've got the cold wrapping around you tighter than a toddler in a sleeping bag, and your only ticket to warmth involves juggling firewood like a circus act gone rogue. It's less the greatest show on earth, and more, let's hope I don't set my hair on fire today. Despite the icy grip of winter, you shuffle over to the stove, the petch, the heart of your household, or as I like to call it, the low-key celebrity of your Izba. The stove, with its warm belly, does a surprisingly good job of merging steam from the pot with tension from the recent While Will Burn the Bread First competition. Sure, one wrong move might send smoke spiraling into the heavens and cause the neighbors to send over that condescending, "Oh, I thought you had it all together, look," but you revel in the exhilaration of just being alive. On good days, the bread rises to the occasion like a phoenix reborn. On bad days, well, let's just say it might resemble a heavy frisbee that fell out of a plane. You can almost hear the whispers of your ancestors as they try to process how someone could take something as simple as flour and water and turn it into a culinary weapon of mass disappointment. With every pat and prod, you channel the essence of ancient bakers, declaring to the heavens, "I will not be defeated by dough. You shall become deliciousness." It's like a motivational TED Talk, only slightly less organized and a lot more prone to flour explosions. There's something immediately relatable about this rhythmic motion, the kneading, the shaping as if you were in the middle of an ancient tribal dance where the only goal is not to trip over the cat in the corner. And just as you begin to feel accomplished, you hear it. The dreaded sound of concern, a child to your left, throwback tune of delight. They're looking at you wide-eyed, convinced that being nearly frozen is the new cool, while you know it's just another casual Tuesday in December. They're frozen, fidgeting under layers of wool, and somehow still managing to bounce like they just discovered sugar. What is their secret? Well, let's hope it's not that dubious stew you accidentally created last week. Managing the household while becoming a winter figure skater within your own home isn't an easy feat. Imagine balancing your beloved petch logs in one hand while attempting to avoid that random crate of turnips your mother-in-law dropped off, because why would you want anything else in life but an overflow of turnips? It's like that moment when you find yourself deep in an online shopping spree. You regret it as soon as the packages arrive at your door. Survival is only part chaos, and the rest, disappointment. Yet, it's in this delightful absurdity that you find connection. Other residents of the Izba shuffle in and out, providing their own layers of chaos, the cheerful babble of gossip, the sudden decision to plant every root vegetable known to man, or the realization that the beloved cat is currently conspiring to bring down the entire bread-baking operation by hanging out on the freshly rolled dough. Your stove lets out a laugh-like puff of smoke, perhaps also amused by how the unpredictable nature of life blankets you daily. Then comes the gloriously rhythmic sound of the fire crackling, reminiscent of a heartbeat, warming every corner of your mind and body with promise. You remind yourself, this is not merely about survival. It's a coalescence of routines and reflexes, of family ties wrapped tighter than your grandmother's hugs after a long absence. The cold outside, a mere reminder of the toasty haven you've crafted, punctured only by the occasional eruption of laughter or the questioning glance of a cat deciding if it's time to sacrifice their dignity by rolling in flour for attention. As you take a moment to inhale deep, surrendering to this dance of daily survival, you find comfort in the certainty of the routine. It becomes your armor against the frigid realities outside, while a hearty loaf bakes away, transforming into more than just bread. It's history, happiness, and a small rebellion against the threat of winter. And what's more absurd, who knew that getting covered in flour could be the true sign of a flourishing family life or a culinary masterpiece turned inside out? You can't make this up. It's the endlessly comical chaos known as surviving winter in the Izba. Chapter 21. Spinning wool into warmth, the grandmother's craft. Now, let's dive headfirst into the cozy world of wool, where the icy grip of winter meets the art of survival. Picture this. The locale, a drafty old Izba, where every gust of wind feels like a personal vendetta against your sanity. Inside, the atmosphere is a delightful mix of smoke, freshly baked bread, and something that vaguely resembles a cat assertively claiming authority over a wool basket. And there, in the midst of this chaos, is a sight to behold. Your grandmother, hands calloused and artful, teaching the delicate craft of wool spinning to none other than you, her entranced granddaughter. You sit on a stool fashioned from a tree stump, the very embodiment of youthful curiosity mixed perhaps with a dash of confusion. Have you ever tried to spin wool? It's not exactly like baking cookies. For instance, spinning wool doesn't involve sneaking bites of cookie dough every few minutes. Instead, it's more like wrestling a small, angry squirrel while trying to convince it that the spinning wheel is its new best friend. Your grandmother embodies patience, akin to that of a saint. Her hands move deftly, twisting and pulling fibers, with a rhythm that could almost make it sound like an enchanting folk song if we didn't know better. You watch in awe, kind of like when you told your friend, "Sure, I'll definitely try to assemble IKEA furniture alone," and ended up with a new coffee table that resembled an abstract sculpture. But let's take a moment to appreciate the task at hand. Wool spinning during the winter in Imperial Russia was essential, not just for warmth, but as a symbolic passing of knowledge, a ceremonial handoff of cozy wisdom. During this era, owning a good woolen shawl was tantamount to having a cozy security blanket, but one that also made you look incredibly fashionable at family gatherings. And yes, there is a difference between the two. One keeps you warm, and the other has the added bonus of not having a cartoon character on it. Now, pull the wool gently, your grandmother instructs, her voice a comforting melody, which mysteriously has the power to quiet the world around you. Could it be? Is she secretly a wizard? You don't want it too tight or too loose, like the relationships in this family. There's wisdom buried in that jest, a truth as palpable as the wool she's spinning. You grab a tuft of wool, nothing like the fluffy clouds in the sky, more akin to an amorphous creature plotting to escape your grasp. It tickles your fingers as you attempt to twist it into something resembling thread. Spoiler alert, it's mostly like trying to tame a hyperactive kitten who believes every inch is their personal playground. Like, can wool have a mind of its own? You nod, accepting the odds were definitely stacked against you. Now, let's add another layer of absurdity. The spinning wheel, your companion in this endeavor, has more parts than a traditional Russian nesting doll. One spin and it creaks ominously, as if warning you that it may well decide to join the ranks of the crumbling Izba any minute now. Is this fate? Will your wool revolution end in disaster? The answer is entirely possible, but your grandmother's laughter cuts through your spiraling concerns like a hot knife through butter. Step by step, you're weaving through this woolly world. Is your yarn uneven? Absolutely. But look at the colorful swirl you've created. It's like a tribute to every questionable haircut you've ever had, a true work of art, but not exactly what you intended. Good thing your grandmother has the uncanny ability to see potential where you only see tangled chaos. Soon you'll be dressed warmly enough to battle a bear, or at least a very cranky old hen. As you stretch out the growing yarn, it suddenly occurs to you, this process is not just about wool, but about the tales woven into every strand. This thread connects to the past, back to generations of women, each twist infused with laughter, exhaustion, and the occasional foul word when the yarn snags or the needle pokes where it shouldn't. Slower, Anna. Let the wool dance on the wheel. not skip like a stone, your grandmother urges. Ah, yes, wisdom that transcends ages. Life is not a race. It's a woolly, slow jam that can sometimes resemble a family wrestling match. And isn't that oddly reflective of our modern lives? We rush to achieve, to get things done, forgetting the vibrant beauty found in simply enjoying the process, even if the process looks like you're trying to schedule an appointment with destiny while juggling flaming torches. Maybe life is less about rigid efficiency and more about the warmth of connection, reminiscent of that grand tapestry of family gathered around the hearth, wielding needles, wool, and the occasional slice of dry bread. Then, like the stroke of fate, your grandmother finishes her own spinning and holds up a beautiful continuous strand. What do you think? She smiles, and for a moment, time freezes. You can hear the wind howling outside, reminding you of its relentless presence, but inside is warmth, laughter, and love. At that moment, it's not about the perfect wool. It's about the moments shared, the stories woven into every twist and turn, and the knowledge that someday you'll look back at all this, maybe with a laughter-filled eye roll at all the chaos that came together for a Nothing Else Matters finale. So, as you finally surrender to the evening, a heart full of warmth from your grandmother's teachings, remember that wool isn't just wool. It's part of history, family, and the mildly absurd reality of surviving winter, the twisted yarn of life. And who knew that battling wool could turn into a delightful dance of survival that will leave you with fond memories warmer than your homemade shawl. You can't make this stuff up. Folks, Chapter 22, Anna and the Warmth of Grandfatherly Wisdom. Ah, the picturesque landscape of Imperial Russia in the 18th century. Imagine a frigid winter day, the kind where even the snowflakes are huddling together for warmth. Nature has conspired against warmth, tapping out a frosty symphony as the wind howls like a pack of disgruntled wolves. But there, perched upon a rustic wooden throne forged from logs, sits your grandfather, wise as a winter owl, commanding the warmth of the family Izba, surrounded by a cacophony of crackling firewood and the sweet scent of pine, the highly sought-after, I don't freeze you to death notes of winter. And there you are, Anna, a wide-eyed child dreaming and pondering the enormity of the family cabin you're destined to one day oversee. This isn't just any cabin. It's the McMansion of rural Russia. If McMansions were constructed more responsibly and were less likely to crumble during vodka-fueled family gatherings. As you sit there, warming, yourself against the sturdy wall, your thoughts begin to whirl. What is it like to wear the crown of warmth, to rule over logs with the wisdom of a Father Frost? You gaze up at your grandfather, who seems to radiate heat like a furnace, his beard resembling a snow-dusted fir tree, the kind that's so impressive you sometimes wonder if it contains small woodland creatures or is just a magnificent trapping of fluff and stories. How did he brave the biting cold? When did he learn the ancient secret to uninterrupted warmth, as if he was the geriatric wizard of the woodlands? Your grandfather notices your rapt attention and squints at you, his eyes sharp enough to slice through the haze of winter mischief. Anna, he says, his voice as deep and warm as this cabin, you ought to know that warmth doesn't just come from the fire. It's about the walls we build and the stories we share. That's right. To stay warm was a matter of craftsmanship as well as coziness. You feel an urgency rise within you. What did he mean by this? You want to know the secrets of heating an empire, or at least the secrets to avoid freezing into a human popsicle while regaling relatives with fishing tales every winter night for generations to come. How does one become as warm as a clay oven? You wonder silently, recalling how intricate log building was, akin to assembling a puzzle where half the pieces are suspiciously missing, and the instructions might as well be written in some long-forgotten language. And what about winter? How did the frostbite god spare some while ushering in frost and chill for others? It was a selection of mysteries you never quite understood until the stories began to emerge. Why do the logs seem so stacked against each other like they're forming a lumber union? You ponder, resting your chin on the crookedly worn floor. Is it the companionship of the logs that seals away winter? Are the logs plotting an insurrection against the frost that keeps infiltrating their ranks? Do they gather around to gossip about how the birch trees always leave their bark behind and how it gets a tad embarrassing when spring rolls around? The world outside is frigid, but inside the Izba, it's a magical realm of warmth. The wind may be doing its worst, but these logs are standing like valiant soldiers, side by side, creating a fortress of warmth. Young Anna, you muse, could there be a rebellion of the logs against old winter? Do the chambers of your Izba conspire to create a climate that is the summer of one's dreams? Grandfather laughs heartily at your musings. Ah, little Anna, the logs have seen more winters than most in this land, and they hold stories in every knot and grain. They are your allies against the winter chill, steadfast against the gnashing teeth of frost. You picture them as a ragtag band of heroes, bundled together for the sake of cozy survival. To your imaginative mind, it becomes a grand narrative. Perhaps they murmur among themselves at dusk, plotting their ways to absorb the warmth from the crackling hearth while fending off the brutal chill outside. Your fantasizing grows thick, and you can almost hear the logs whisper, "Hey, not today, Frost," while seizing the fortitude to withstand their frosty challenger. Soon, little one, it will be your turn to rule from this warm throne. You shall defend against winter's embrace and gather sparks of laughter with all of your family, he assures you, placing his gnarled hands on your shoulder. It's the kind of reassurance that tugs at your heartstrings while kindling embers of future tales you'd recount when the snow was thick enough to hide a lost cat. Isn't it oddly comforting? Your very being is rooted not only within the walls of the Izba, but woven into this family tapestry. Generations of cold, warmth, and laughter would reside in each log, nothing like the awkward woes of modern live streaming. Broadband woes and Wi-Fi dead zones could disgrace this sturdy abode. Grandfather continues, but on your watch, ensure to use only the finest timbers. The lopsided logs don't inspire confidence, like trying to dance on a rolling ship managed by a blind captain. His knack for metaphor brings laughter and sets your imagination soaring once more. Here, you realize that warmth isn't merely a commodity. It is kinship, a heartwarming tale wrapped snugly alongside the log walls that both shield and nourish. As you nestle further into the comfort, visions of storytelling winters loom large, enticing you with the prospect of amazing adventures, a pair of mismatched slippers you will wear all too well, and the thrilling idea that perhaps, just perhaps, logs could be as lively as summer picnics filled with overcooked sausages and extemporaneous singing. So you lean back, fluff the blanket around your shoulders, and surrender, breathing in the crackling air that weaves through each moment, knowing that, king or queen of warmth, this is your kingdom now, and may winter be ever your footnote, drifted away like a forgotten chill. Chapter 23. The Log-Crafted Legacy. Alright, let's dive into the delightful chaos of winter survival somewhere around the 18th and 19th centuries in Imperial Russia. Picture yourself, freshly awakened in a log cabin that smells suspiciously of smoked herring and an unidentifiable winter stew simmering somewhere in the corner. Congratulations. You've officially entered an era where frostbite was basically a form of social networking. Everyone wanted to see who could survive the coldest. Now, speaking of freezing winters, let's talk about the brave souls, those peasant builders, who lugged around those hefty logs like they were auditioning for some kind of lumberjack competition, perhaps one where the prize was simply not freezing to death before breakfast. Imagine them, cloaks wrapped tightly around them, and the look of sheer determination plastered across their frostbitten faces. Honestly, they probably looked like a human version of a walking popsicle, except instead of being sold at a fair, they were laboring for the sake of survival. These log cabins, these magnificent creations of craftsmanship, were the lifesavers of their day, built to withstand temperatures that made the Arctic seem like a sunny beach getaway. You might imagine these faded figures, their names lost to history, but their handiwork standing tall against the winter's wrath, glorious timber fortresses humming with warmth, as they flicked the icy winds off their shoulders like a nonchalant aristocrat brushing away lint. Ever wonder how on earth they managed to stack logs so perfectly while also keeping the frost out? It's like putting together IKEA furniture without losing your mind or your fingers to frostbite. Those poor builders would have been more successful against winter if they'd just used a grip strengthening device, but instead they relied on well-timed log flinging and an incredible amount of hope, which, let's face it, sounds less complex, yet somehow far more dangerous. Now, let's shift gears a bit. As you settle in on your makeshift throne, perhaps it's just a stack of hay that a friendly goat is eyeing suspiciously. Your eyes are drawn to the astonishing craftsmanship surrounding you. Each log is like a chapter in a historical novel, whispering secrets of the centuries. Could you imagine if these logs could talk? Hey there, I've seen more winters than a disgruntled ancient spirit. You think this place is cold? Try living in 1742. No thermal underwear in sight. Ah, yes, the very essence of log humor. And how did these timeless structures manage to conquer a ferocious climate that would make even the sturdiest of polar bears shudder? The secret was simple. The logs were cut and stacked with such precision that they created natural insulation, a barrier of sorts against the numbing bitter cold. Each log, seemingly mundane, was actually a hero in disguise, working its magic like some kind of lumbering superhero. It was like being wrapped in a warm flannel blanket that also happened to be made of very, very old tree bark. Let's talk aesthetic for a moment, because who doesn't appreciate log buildings being all the rage? Picture this. Amidst the dazzling white of snow, towering alongside them were these rugged cabins that looked like they belonged in a rustic Pinterest board. Only instead of followers, they had a mere handful of mice lounging idly beside the hearth, pretending they weren't eyeing your dinner. And what of the peasant life? Daily tasks would involve chopping wood, tending to a small garden of hardy vegetables, and dodging the relentless inability to get anything remotely free of frostbite. True, modern life might have inconveniences, like running out of your favorite coffee, or an unexpected subscription that you never signed up for. But can you really call it suffering next to those peasants who battled their way through 6 months of winter while praying their potatoes remained edible? Somehow never going to the store again takes on an entirely new meaning when your grocery list is a pair of socks and a square meal of anything that moves slowly. Their evenings were filled with storytelling too. Families would gather around the fire, which was more of a necessity than a luxury, sharing tales of intrepid woodland adventures, or perhaps the local bear that occasionally checked in for a casual snack while sporting a coat that definitely made everyone feel underdressed. The warmth radiating from the logs surrounding them transformed what could have been a frigid experience of despair into a camaraderie akin to a hot coffee in your favorite cafe, comforting with just a hint of danger if you didn't keep the front door shut. So, as you settle deeper into your log Latin fortress, harking back to the spirits of those unassuming builders, remember, every crack in the wood, every knot holds a story. Their perfect craftsmanship stands like a cozy middle finger to winter. Take that, icy winds. And as you drift off, lulled into daydreams of icy winds and log-laden legacies, let the echoes of their laughter brush against your weary mind. History might whisper tales of survival, but somewhere in those stories is a reminder that everyone carries their own logs of warmth. Yours just might come with a side of quirky logs and mice playing the long game of house rules. Sweet dreams, dear listener. May your logs keep you warm tonight. Chapter 24. Spring Blossoms and Survival Secrets. Hey guys, ready to take a gentle jaunt into the world of cozy log cabins, buzzing bees and blooming flowers? Tonight, we'll explore how these sturdy wooden structures not only survive frigid winters, but manage to thrive under a delightful blanket of grass, flowers, and possibly the bees' version of a house party. Yes, you heard that right. Spoiler alert, it's nothing like the epic ragers of today. But then again, who could compete with bees' nature's flittering little baristas, dispensing life with every buzz? Now before we dive deeper, I'd like you to do a little interior redecoration of the soul. Dim the lights, strip on that soothing fan, and snuggle into a blanket that might as well be made of clouds. Feel that? Perfect. Ever thought about what life was like for those springtime frolicking peasants after surviving winter? Did they just kick back and sip imaginary lattes? Did they teach their kids how to appreciate the subtle pleasure of no longer waking up with icicles as bedfellows? And what about the garden? Did they just splash dirt around and hope potatoes magically appeared? Or did they have serious meetings with neighborhood rabbits about crop sabotage? Congratulations! You've just awakened in the latter half of the 18th century under the radiant sky of Imperial Russia. The ice is melting, the air smells sweet, and you are surrounded by the unmistakable scent of new beginnings. And let's be honest, probably the lingering odor of last season's winter stew. You might want to give it a minute. Imagine waking up one crisp morning. The sun has graced its presence, and as you roll out of your straw-filled mattress, you feel invigorated, or perhaps just a little sore from sharing your bed with a goat. Sorry, sheep, you're going to have to sleep on the hay tonight. Welcome to your raucous reality as a peasant. As you peer outside your log cabin, behold, the roof, once covered with a heavy winter coat of snow, now displays a fine layer of sprightly green grass, the kind that looks like nature's welcome mat. Tiny white and yellow flowers have popped up, as if they were late to the party and now vying for the attention of the local pollinators. God bless those busy bees. Oh, what a sight to see amidst the mud-kicked reality, the very symbols of survival. But how did this log cabin, standing resilient against the winter's wrath, manifest such life? It's like the housing market today. Location matters. These magically humble abodes created a micro-ecosystem. The logs absorbed warmth from the sun and let it seep into the grass, which in turn provided nourishment to all those buzzing friends who'd come to sip nectar. Let's talk about those flowers for a moment, shall we? They remind you of that one elusive friendship in adulthood that requires constant effort. After the prolonged agonizing cold, they explode into radiance with no care in the world. It's as if they woke up one morning and declared, "I'm using organic compost. And watch out, the whole neighborhood is about to witness my blooming glory." Admiring them feels surreal, especially knowing that a few months earlier, they might as well have been among the frozen peas in a poorly organized freezer. And the bees, ladies and gentlemen, their work ethic puts your Monday morning dread to shame. Winged creatures buzzing around without a care, getting paid in pollen while you struggle to figure out what's motivating you to get out of bed. They don't just flit about looking for the next sugary snack. No, they are on a mission. Pollination, that's their job. If only our modern selves could pull off that kind of focus while dodging coffee spills and Zoom calls. As you step closer to the flower spectacle, you can hear the hum of these hard-working bees. Their gentle symphony is like a harmonious reminder that thriving life always follows strife. It's like an ancient version of good vibes only, resonating through each tiny buzzing body. They know nothing of frostbite, making them the perfect champions of spring. The reality of life in the cabin remains seamlessly tied to this orchestra of nature, outside. Imagine the moment you accidentally stomp on a bee. Suddenly, you're a peasant protagonist in a medieval episode of Real Houseguests of the Garden. Hilarity ensues as you try to explain to a group of local peasants why your toe is stinging like it just joined a very bad karate dojo. The cabin may protect you from the chill, but nature has its own comedic surprises around every flower bed. What an ironic contrast it is, watching the world bloom, all while you're likely still finishing off that last suspicious turnip from the winter stash. Ah, the cycle of life. And speaking of cycles, remember that garden you were contemplating? Incredibly, you've traded frosty nightmares for muddy hands and questionable dreams. Welcome to the world of early gardening, where weeds grow like they've been drinking growth hormone smoothies, and your most significant hurdle might be dodging the local wildlife. As you step back inside, you can't help but feel a sense of calmness despite the chaos. The logs, with their sturdy embrace, now serve as both your fortress and a witness to this colorful rebirth. You're still here, eking out a life from the earth, hoping the bees share their secrets of industriousness. Because let's face it, if beekeeping was a thing back then, peasant life might have included weekly workshops on 101 ways to befriend the buzz. So as you settle in, surrounded by the faint echoes of playful bees outside, remember, there's a rhythm to life that feels much like the hibernation of winter giving way to the exuberance of spring. Those buzzing little monsters might just hold all the wisdom of surviving unexpected seasons. As you drift off into dreams filled with flower-filled meadows and buzzing symphonies, know that laughter may very well be your warmest blanket tonight, and the world outside is just one bloom away from joy. Sweet dreams, dear friend. Chapter 25. Engineering Marvels of the Izba. Hey guys, tonight we're venturing into the realm of cozy Russian log cabins, specifically the Izba, which sounds super exotic but is really just a slide into the past where cold and creativity collide. And let's be real, if you've ever walked into your living room and thought, wow, it feels like the North Pole in here, congratulations. You've basically experienced what it felt like to live inside an Izba in the dead of winter, a season more brutal than a family reunion after Thanksgiving dinner. Now, I know what you're thinking. How do I possibly cozy up to the thought of freezing temperatures? Well, let's imagine for a moment that your house, or let's just say the entirety of your life, depended on building a structure that could withstand the kind of winter reserved for polar bears and really committed ice skaters. Did you think they just slapped together some logs and called it a day? Oh no! We're talking about a fine-tuned masterpiece of engineering, where the only goal was to love every log as if it were your favorite pet. Before we dive into that though, I'd like you to dim the lights, channel your inner Russian peasant, and imagine you need to gather firewood while simultaneously wondering if your socks are actually frozen to your feet. Is there a thermometer nearby that just laughed in your face? Just wait until it hits negative 50 degrees and you'll think an ice cube is your best friend. Picture this. You wake up in your Izba, and guess what? It's a glorious morning, or it could be, if glorious meant facing temperatures that would make even the toughest winter coats consider moving to Florida. The Izba is not just a house. It's like the Swiss Army knife of homes, all big logs and snug corners. And if you think about it, isn't your home trying to be its own cozy fortress? Much like the humble log cabin, just without the hewn logs, of course, unless IKEA starts a lumberjack-themed line. One of the coolest parts of Izba architecture, you guessed it, is the moss. It's like the nature-inspired caulking of the 1700s and 1800s. Moss tightly seals the gaps between the logs, helping to keep the cold at bay. So instead of contracting an overpriced contractor to insulate your house, you could just have a local bear drop by your yard for a bit of a nature aesthetic, right? Hey, mind jumping into my roof's construction project? Bring some moss next time. You can hardly miss it. The floating foundation. Did you know that the Izba was designed to rest on frozen ground like it was an ice skater performing a flawless pirouette? No sinking here, folks. They were essentially floating above the chill like a cozy cloud of warmth, battling an Arctic wind with cunning ingenuity. This ingenious design meant that while that ground below was doing its best impression of a mega ice ray, your home remains slightly elevated, fully committed to fighting frost. But let's not forget about the corners. While these simple abodes might look rather rustic from the outside, they were built with such precision that they allowed for airflow. The corners of the Izba are designed to breathe, which is more than you can say for your typical modern apartment. So if you can find a way to market that as a concept to today's buyers, congratulations. You might just revolutionize the housing market, or scare off potential buyers who think breathable corners sounds suspiciously like a yoga retreat. Imagine the sounds awake in this wooden wonder, creaks and groans of logs adjusting like a symphony orchestra preparing for a grand performance. Every whimper and sigh carries a story, echoing through the chilly air. Your morning cup of herbal tea, more like a frosty challenge as your fingers quickly question their existence while holding the cup. And it's this constant dance of warmth, trying to win over the cold, that makes the Izba an architectural masterpiece against winter's icy grip. Next up, heated floors, sort of. The humble Izba utilized the heat rising from the wooden logs, treating the low ground as radiant heating, albeit in its own peculiar way. Imagine waking up, your feet stepping out onto what feels like the hardened ground of a frozen lake. And what's that crunch? Oh, just last week's potato chips you forgot you left about. Living the dream, aren't we? Picture this. You finally mustered the courage to step out of bed only to realize that the entire floor feels like a frozen tundra. Forget about walking barefoot on a soothing wood floor. Every step is more like a suspenseful game of Russian roulette with your own toes. Will I emerge a wise crone or a popsicle? You might wonder as you leap across the room, only to then greet the snap of your frozen last potato as it pokes at your resilience. As you go about your day in this warm, wood-hewn sanctuary, every crack around the corners speaks to the art of survival. The Izba hasn't just managed to resist winter. It sticks around like that friend who promises to bring snacks, but instead just hangs out for the free Wi-Fi. Home sweet home, indeed. Now, as you find a cozy nook in this wooden marvel, allow yourself to sink into dreams of perfectly insulated corners and mossy log gaps, while the world outside freezes in a frosty embrace. It's all about finding warmth in unexpected places, like friendships forged over the shared struggle of weathering a winter colder than your last relationship. A hilarious twist we could only dream of. So go ahead, snuggle in, and let the peacefulness of the Izba cradle you into a state of tranquil slumber. Sweet dreams await. And now, as we drift away from the crackling stoves, the frozen rooftops, and the long, stubborn fight against winter that shaped so many lives, let your breath soften, let your shoulders loosen, and let the warmth of the present settle gently around you. Tonight, we walked through a world where cold wasn't an inconvenience, it was an opponent, a force that pressed against every door, every window, every bone. We watched families huddle close to a single fire, listened to walls groan under the weight of endless snow, and followed people who faced each day with humor, grit, and an unshakable belief that warmth somehow would hold. We saw log cabins stand like small wooden miracles against storms that erased the sky. We watched children dream atop glowing stoves, grandparents rule their little kingdoms of warmth, and villagers shuffle across icy floors with all the determination of warriors preparing for battle. And even in the harshest moments, there was laughter. Quiet, stubborn laughter that rose like steam against the cold. There's something deeply human in that, the way people find comfort where they can, joy where it doesn't seem to belong, and hope in the smallest ember. And now, as you lie in your warm bed, surrounded by soft light, steady air, and the quiet hum of the modern world, take a moment to feel grateful for the ease wrapped around you. No frozen mornings, no collapsing roofs, no desperate search for dry wood. Just rest. Let the cold stay outside your imagination. Let the warmth in your room deepen. Let the quiet settle like a blanket. You're safe. You've done enough. And the world with all its storms can wait until tomorrow. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and drift gently into sleep. The winter is quiet now.